Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Marie Robards. Stephen Robards and Beth Burrows grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. Stephen, whose father owned a small insurance agency, was a well-known figure at school. Beth, a talented athlete in track and field, volleyball, and basketball. Stephen and Beth fell in love in high school and married in 1972. When Beth turned 18, shortly after her boyfriend signed a 4-year contract to serve in the Navy on July 10th, they welcomed daughter, Marie, that same year. Because of Stephen's military service, the family moved frequently between different naval bases. This lifestyle was challenging for Beth. After Stephen completed his service, they returned to Fort Worth. Beth often criticized her husband and described their relationship as a teenage romance, but over time, the love faded and the daily challenges made things worse. Additionally, Stephen's temper and jealousy added to the strain on their relationship, causing Beth to file for divorce in 1979. Marie Robards, their daughter, was a well-behaved student who excelled in her studies. She played the clarinet in the school orchestra and took art and dance lessons during after-school activities. Because her father was in the military, they moved frequently, which made it challenging for Marie to constantly change schools and friends at first. However, she gradually adjusted and became more open and sociable with her new classmates and teachers. After her parents divorced, Marie and her mother, Beth, relocated to a nearby city, while her father stayed in their previous home. Stephen lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in Fort Worth, and Marie, along with Beth, visited him no more than twice a month. In the 1980s, Beth began a relationship with Frank Rouse, a former Navy officer she met while her husband was stationed in Florida. At first, they were just chatting, but after Beth's divorce, they developed a relationship and decided to live together. After leaving the Navy, Frank became a police officer in a small Texas town about an hour outside of Fort Worth, with a population of about 10,000. Frank had also recently gone through a divorce and had full custody of his son, the same age as Beth's daughter, Marie. In 1981, Beth married Frank, but their marriage soon hit a rough patch. Beth had to work, so she spent little time with her husband and children, making it difficult for them to bond. This problem remained unresolved and became more serious when Marie turned 16. One day, she came home to find Frank in bed with another woman. Marie was furious and told her mother immediately, but instead of ending the relationship, Beth remained calm. During this time, Beth worked in the emergency room at a local hospital, which kept her away from home for long hours. As a result, she rarely saw Frank and did not spend much time with her daughter. Beth did not blame Frank for their distance. Instead, she felt responsible because she believed she should have spent more time with him. However, Marie was frustrated and thought that Frank was not good enough for her mother, urging Beth to divorce him. Beth, on the other hand, wanted to handle her own relationships and asked Marie not to interfere. As she grew older, Marie began to distance herself from her family. She often argued with Frank and pointed out his shortcomings. Eventually, Beth had to choose between Marie and Frank. Marie declared that if Beth did not divorce him, she would leave the house. Beth disagreed with her daughter's wishes. Even though Marie started packing, Beth didn't change her mind. She decided that Marie should stay with her maternal relatives in Fort Worth instead of going to her biological father's house. Beth contacted these relatives, who assisted Marie in enrolling in a new school. Marie moved, but after only 5 days in Fort Worth, she had spent all her money and wanted to return home to her mother. At this time, Frank's son chose to live with his biological mother, but soon became unhappy and wanted to return. However, Frank refused to let him return. Now, Marie was faced with a similar situation, and she was not allowed to return home either. The rule that if someone left home, they could not return, created a lot of tension. Beth felt that Frank was forcing her to choose between him and Marie. Many people supported Frank's stance, believing that children should not have a back-and-forth relationship with their parents, as this led to conflict and problems. Frank was steadfast in his beliefs and wanted to prevent such problems. He thought he was promoting discipline and trying to avoid constant chaos and tension. It is important to note that Frank was a former military man, known for his decisiveness and discipline. Marie had to accept the situation. At this point, she had lost respect for Frank because of his affair, but after recent events, she had come to hate Frank. Marie left Fort Worth and moved into a rented apartment. Meanwhile, Beth tried to convince her husband to let them reunite. She believed that this was just a temporary situation and that Marie would return soon. Unfortunately, despite her efforts, Frank was unyielding and never allowed Marie back. Beth felt trapped in this situation. The strain on their relationship led her to seek help from a psychologist. Marie then decided to move back in with her father, Stephen. Marie's decision to return seemed to stem from desperation. Stephen was happy to have his daughter back. At the time, he was living alone and struggling with depression. He later found work as a mailman and became romantically involved with Sandra Hudgens, who lived in the same apartment complex as him. During this time, they lived in a small, cramped one-room apartment. Marie slept on a cot in the kitchen. Steve realized that his daughter was struggling, so he tried to cheer her up. He took her to the movies and outings regularly. However, Sandra felt that these efforts did not make much of a difference. Marie's academic performance declined, and she frequently called Beth, asking to come home. She missed her mother's love and attention. Marie was unhappy with her father's cooking and cleaning and sometimes cried on the phone, begging to come home. She expressed her dislike of the new school and complained about her father's small living space. Marie is confused as to why her mother favors Frank over her and feels that her mother will not stand up to him. Beth, her mother, explained that she felt helpless because her husband would not let her visit Marie. Marie eventually began to write in her diary about her thoughts of ending her life. When her father found out about this, he was very worried and immediately informed Beth. It turns out Marie exaggerated her emotions to get attention. As the months passed, things stabilized. Marie seemed to be adjusting. Her grades improved significantly. She was able to connect with her classmates and everything seemed to be back to normal. Marie's emotions stabilized as well. She had completely adapted to her new environment. According to Sandra, Marie never had any conflicts with her father, was respectful to him and remained calm. Stephen did his best to support her. However, behind Marie's calm exterior, there was something darker. After 3 years, Marie moved back in with her father. On February 18th, Stephen ordered Mexican food for dinner. After the meal, he planned to attend a church service. About an hour later, Stephen returned to his apartment complex, complaining of severe stomach pain and feeling very unwell. Maria, along with Sandra, went to check on him after hearing that he was unwell. When they arrived, Stephen was in pain, shaking, foaming at the mouth, and having difficulty breathing. The ambulance arrived shortly after, but it was too late. They tried to insert a breathing tube, but his airway had closed. Stephen was rushed to the hospital, but he died on the way. Maria was in shock, staring at her father and trying to hide her emotions from Sandra. She had no idea what had really happened, because Stephen's death was not an accident. Hours after the incident, Frank and Beth learned that Stephen was dead. They had to take Marie home, something she had wanted for a long time. After an autopsy, the medical examiner concluded that Stephen had died of a heart attack, identifying symptoms such as chest pain, nausea, and difficulty breathing. The case seemed straightforward and that Stephen's death was due to a heart attack. He did not perform toxicology tests. Even if they wanted to run those tests, the lab didn't have the equipment needed to detect the poison in Stephen's blood. After the burial, Maria stayed by her father's grave, remaining in shock even after everyone else had left. Following the funeral, her mother Beth approached her, visibly upset, and shared her plans to break up with Frank and move to Panama City, Florida, with Maria. However, Maria began to have difficulty breathing and panic, and it took her a long time to calm down. Beth believed that Maria's grief was due to the death of her father Stephen, unaware of the deeper issues at play. Marie and Beth then moved to Panama City. Beth found a job as a clerk at the Department of Motor Vehicles and enrolled her daughter in school. Things seemed to improve, but Marie continued to struggle with depression. Her mother suspected that this was related to her father's death. Beth blamed herself for what had happened. As a high school senior, Marie saw a psychologist who diagnosed her with major depression. Marie's mother recalled the serious problems Stephen had faced and was concerned that his mental health problems might be affecting Marie. To help Marie cope with her depression, she sought the help of a psychiatrist. Things changed when Frank came to Panama City hoping to reconcile with Beth, believing that he needed to devote more time to their marriage and change his attitude towards raising their children. Surprisingly, Beth forgave her unfaithful husband once again. Marie was surprised by her mother's decision. She expressed her unwillingness to live with Frank, who had been unfaithful to Beth, and said that she missed Texas and wanted to live with her mother without any men. However, Beth decided to move in with Frank. In response, Marie contacted her grandfather, Jim, and asked if she could live with him in Mansfield. The family agreed, and Marie moved in with her grandfather. Marie became an outstanding granddaughter, an excellent student, and very polite. She was deeply engaged in the lives of her family and friends. Marie continued to pursue her passion for art and showed interest in journalism. She was intelligent and attractive, yet she dressed simply and never acted impulsively. She always returned home on time, didn't drink at parties, and avoided dating, even though many boys showed interest in her. Eventually, Marie formed a friendship with one of the most popular girls at school, Stacy. Stacy believed that Marie had gone through something traumatic, though she could not fathom how severe it truly was. In January 1994, Marie and Stacy spent the night together, studying Shakespeare's Hamlet. As Stacy read the part about poisoning, Marie suddenly looked pale and unwell. Concerned, Stacy asked her what was wrong. At first, she thought Marie might be upset about the possibility of pregnancy, but Marie denied it. Stacy then asked Marie if she had crashed her grandfather's car, but she shook her head in response. Stacy joked, "You didn't kill anyone, did you?" Marie became quiet and then asked an unusual question. She wanted to know how her friend felt about such events happening in real life. Stacy paused to think. Marie attempted to stand up from the couch but quickly collapsed back in tears, confessing that she had poisoned her father. Overwhelmed by her emotions, she could no longer contain her guilt. Marie then recounted the story of the murder. She explained that in early February 1993, during a chemistry class, she had poured a substance from a bottle into a napkin, which she later put in her backpack. That evening, she added a bit of poison to her father's meal, and subsequently she endured a long struggle with guilt over her actions. After Marie confessed, she pleaded with Stacy to keep it a secret. Marie had only shared this information with Stacy. She revealed that she had access to a deadly poison that is nearly impossible to detect. This poison can quickly cause a heart attack, leading to death that appears natural. However, Marie claimed she was unaware of its lethal potential at the time. She only wanted her father to become ill so that her mother would care for her. Stacy eventually told her mother everything, and they were both shocked. The mother contacted the Poison Control Center to inquire if the substance could be fatal. The lab technician sensed something was off and declined to provide an answer. The mother then hung up the phone. Marie felt lost and unsure of what to do. At first, she kept it a secret. She struggled with her feelings for a long time but eventually convinced herself that it was just a cruel prank. Stacy suggested that Marie talk to a psychologist or a priest to share her feelings. However, things did not improve. In February 1994, on the first anniversary of Stephen's death, Jim took Marie and her friend Stacy out to dinner. As Jim raised a glass in remembrance, both girls burst into tears. For several weeks, Stacy was tormented by feelings of guilt and nightmares until she finally decided to reach out to the school counselor and confided in her friend. Although it sounded strange, her friend took the matter seriously and contacted the police, hoping to find answers. The police lab did not have the necessary equipment to investigate the results, making everything futile. Stacy also began to distance herself from Marie. She wanted to avoid all contact with Marie. Their friendship eventually fell apart. Meanwhile, Marie believed that everything had been forgotten, unaware that there was an investigation going on. In October 1994, a Fort Worth police officer contacted Stacy, saying that the toxicology results were back. They revealed that Stephen Robards had indeed been poisoned. He had received a dose 250 times higher than the fatal dose, suggesting that it was premeditated murder. Marie was arrested while studying at the University of Texas at Austin, where many people considered her sweet and harmless. She confessed immediately. Marie said that she never intended to kill her father. She just wanted to make him sick so she could reunite with her mother. Unfortunately, she miscalculated the dose and accidentally caused Stephen's death. Many people found it hard to believe that Marie could have done such an act, and some even blamed her mother for the situation. They believed that her mother's abandonment had caused Marie distress. They felt that Marie was not supposed to be with her mother, which caused her to take drastic actions to get her attention. Marie first appeared in court for a preliminary hearing on October 28, 1994, but she was released on bail and placed in the custody of her mother. A major issue now is whether Marie should be treated as a minor or an adult. Since she was 17 at the time of poisoning her father and is legally considered a minor. On March 30, 1995, Marie Robards was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. It was decided that she would be tried as an adult. Her mother posted $10,000 bail, allowing Marie to move back in with Frank and Beth while she awaited her trial. She was 19 at the time. Marie's mother used the money Marie received from Stephen's life insurance policy, totaling $60,000, to hire 2 experienced attorneys from Fort Worth. Their defense strategy was based on the argument that Marie wanted her father sick, but did not intend to kill him. Her goal was simply to get back to her mother. The prosecutor's office argued that the actions were motivated by malicious intent, particularly due to the insurance money that Marie received. In this case, the prosecution suggested pressing charges for first-degree murder. Testifying for the prosecution was Marie's best friend, Stacy, who provided details about the emotional state of the Marie. The defense called a psychiatrist to testify, who stated that Marie was not a cold-blooded killer and was merely suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder due to guilt over killing her father. Throughout the hearing, Marie sat silently, often covering her face and crying. Although Marie expressed remorse and expressed her love for her father, the prosecutor claimed that her feelings were not genuine. The prosecution argued that the poisoning showed premeditated murder, arguing that a stomachache alone did not justify returning to her mother. Instead, it implied a desire to kill. At the time, a friend of Marie's mentioned that Marie was considering various ways to reunite with her mother. Marie thought that if she burned down her father's apartment, her mother would come get her. However, no one took Marie seriously. Everyone believed that she was joking. Beth felt guilty about the situation. During the trial, she expressed that if she had left Frank sooner and moved to Florida with Marie, this tragedy could have been avoided. Marie's grandfather, Jim, pleaded for mercy for his granddaughter, asserting that she could not have killed the man she loved. The prosecutor asked for a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 35 years. It is possible that the pleas of family members for a lighter sentence, combined with Marie's emotional expression, influenced the decision. Marie Robards was ultimately sentenced to 28 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 7 years. After the verdict, the lawyers immediately appealed, arguing that the prosecution had presented insufficient evidence about Marie's mental state. However, in 1998, the appeal was denied and she was sent to prison. In a conversation with her mother, Marie expressed that she did not want Stacy to feel guilty about the events that had occurred. Marie believed that Stacy's actions were justified. Marie ultimately served 8 years in prison before being released in 2003. She had since married and changed her name. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Jordan Graham. Montana is the largest landlocked state in the United States, known for its stunning views of the Rocky Mountains and beautiful lakes. A major attraction in Montana is Glacier Park, a vibrant tourist destination, particularly during summer. The park features approximately 700 hiking trails for visitors to explore. Cody Johnson was born in San Jose, California. After his parents divorced, his mother, Sherry, raised him on her own. They always share a close. Eventually, Sherry decided to leave California and move to Montana with Cody. He is a kind, cheerful, and humorous person. He enjoys spending time outdoors, participating in activities like fishing and hiking, but his greatest passion is cars. He collected, repaired, and raced them with friends. After graduating, Cody found a job assembling custom cars, which he naturally enjoyed. His boss was his close friend Cameron, and Cody's career was thriving. However, he dreamed of settling down, meeting someone, and starting a family to fully establish himself in Montana. Cody's bachelor life was about to change. In 2011, he met and started dating Jordan Graham, a 21 years old. She was shy and reserved, only opening up when she felt comfortable. Jordan shared Cody's love for nature and travel. They spent a lot of time hiking together in beautiful Montana locations, especially enjoying visits to Glacier Park. Jordan loved children and often babysat for her friends, expressing her dream of having her own child. She came from a religious family with strict rules, including a ban on sex before marriage. Cody told friends that he really liked Jordan, and he began attending church with her friends and family. He shared that their relationship was growing stronger, and he was so in love that he told his mother he had found the person he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. In December 2012, Cody announced his engagement to Jordan on social media. Friends were thrilled about the engagement. 6 months later, on June 29, 2013, Cody and Jordan got married in an outdoor ceremony. They appeared to be the happiest and most perfect couple. They received many congratulatory speeches, making the event truly wonderful for them. After the long and significant day, they moved into their first home. Instead of going on a honeymoon, they decided to spend their free time working on the house. Cody took a week off from work and was expected to return on July 8, 2013. On Sunday, July 7th, Cody had plans to go kayaking with his father-in-law, Stephen. However, he later contacted Stephen to cancel, mentioning that Jordan had a surprise for him. He and Jordan attended an afternoon church service and then went for a walk by the lake. After the walk, Cody did not return to work, which was unusual for him. His boss, Cameron, became worried and decided to visit his home. Finding no one there and no signs of a break-in, Cameron checked the garage for Cody's car and found his phone, which he usually kept with him. Cameron then reported Cody missing to the police. The detectives first needed a statement from Cody's wife, Jordan. She explained that on their way back from Dairy Queen, Cody received a call and talked for about 30 minutes. She didn't know who called, but Cody appeared clearly agitated by the end of the conversation. When they arrived at Jordan's house, she realized her phone was low on battery and she had left her charger at work. She got back in her car and went to work, leaving Cody in the garage. Later, she received a text from Cody saying he was going for a ride with someone. When she returned home after work, she found her husband was not home. He had gone out in a dark-colored car with Washington state plates. This is nothing unusual, because Cody loved cars and often went to races with new friends, sometimes late at night. She did not report him missing for fear that if he returned, he would realize she had overreacted. Cody and Jordan's group of friends quickly set out to access Cody's social media accounts, hoping to find information about his whereabouts. They obtained a call log and learned that he received a call from a Washington number around the time Jordan mentioned. Since Jordan recalled seeing a car with Washington plates, this was already a lead. The police traced the plate to a man named Jose. Upon questioning, Jose explained that he had called Cody about some tools he had borrowed. The conversation was ordinary, and Jose couldn't recall anything significant related to Cody at that time. Jose is no longer a suspect because he has an alibi, although the police found it odd due to the Washington plates on the car. It's been 3 days since Cody was last seen and police still have no more leads. The search for he intensified. Everyone joined the search day and night. Volunteers joined in, and his family and friends did everything they to find him. They visited the police station to answer various questions, but the responses often didn't align. Jordan was mistaken in her testimony when talking about her time and actions. Jordan explained that Cody left without telling her where he was going or who he was with. Then, she suddenly mentioned receiving a message from he, saying he needed to go for a ride with friends. She also noted that whenever Cody's friends visited, he always took them to Glacier Park for a trip. The investigator highlighted that her story about her husband's disappearance differed from the police's information and urged her to be completely honest. One day, Jordan and her mother went to the police station and showed them an email she had received that morning from a stranger named Tony. The email briefly stated that Tony wanted Jordan to know that there was no need to look for Cody anymore because he was gone. They should stop looking. The email also mentioned that he had gone hiking with friends that night and had fallen off a cliff. Everyone was shocked and assumed that he was dead. It was discovered that Jordan knew Tony. He was a co-worker of Cody's. The police tracked down Tony and asked him to testify. Tony explained that he hadn't seen Cody for some time and hadn't been in contact because Cody was busy preparing for his wedding. He had not used his email recently. He provided all of his phone and computer data to the investigation, and the police concluded that Tony was not involved. Using the details from the email, Jordan organized his own search group and ventured into the rugged and winding terrain. Due to the park's vast size, everyone was aware that the search might drag on for weeks. The following day, the search continued. Jordan led the team in a specific direction, as if she was on a mission to reach a particular location. They drove through many roads and cliffs, any of which could have been Cody's path. Jordan told her friends she wanted to find a certain place Cody had dreamed of visiting. Jordan suddenly stopped the car and jumped out near the loop trail. Next to the trail was a steep slope filled with rocks and tree roots, appearing very dangerous. Undeterred, Jordan climbed over the fence and made her way to the edge. She looked down and shouted to the others that she saw someone at the bottom of the ravine. She claimed it was Cody and called the others over. The search party contacted the park rangers, but since it was already getting dark and too risky to descend, the search was postponed until morning. At 8 a.m. on July 12th, the search for Cody came to a tragic end. Rescuers used ropes tied to trees to descend. Then, they discovered a blue sneaker, identical to the one Cody wore on the day he disappeared. At the bottom, they found Cody face down in the shallow water near the waterfall. Beside him lay a small piece of black cloth, and he was missing his wedding ring. As news spread, friends and family wondered why Cody was at that location at night. Cody's friend, Eddie, mentioned that while Cody enjoyed sightseeing and long walks, he never ventured off the trail, especially in the dark, and was afraid of heights. Cody always hikes on safely fenced trails in lower areas. He once confided to a friend that his fear of heights was so severe that he couldn't even climb a ladder to change a light bulb at his mother's house. Shortly after Cody was found, Jordan posted a wedding photo on Instagram. She said she missed Cody very much, saying that not a day went by without her thinking about him. He was in her heart forever and that she knew he was in a better place now, watching over her as her angel. She said she loved him with all her heart and soul, and hoped to see him again one day. 2 weeks later, the police were still searching for answers about the mysterious email. During the investigation, Cody was buried. At his funeral, Jordan spent the entire time staring at her phone, showing no emotion. Maybe this is how she gets over her pain, but her friend, Kimberly, who witnessed the wedding, thought the behavior was too strange. Kimberly went to the police station to provide information for the investigation. She told the officer that she had been receiving messages from Jordan a few weeks before and following Cody and Jordan's wedding. She recounted conversations with Jordan before the wedding, mentioning that Jordan seemed more excited about the wedding itself than about Cody's feelings. It seemed that Jordan enjoyed the prospect of being a bride more than the reality of being a wife. Friends noticed that Cody seemed more in love with Jordan than she was with him. Kimberly recalled Jordan questioning whether marrying Cody was the right choice. Jordan was very anxious about the wedding night and wondered if she was making a mistake by getting married. The night after the wedding, Jordan messaged she, expressed uncertainty about everything that happened on the wedding night, and mentioned that a lot had happened. When she wanted to hear more details about what happened, Jordan insisted that it was a conversation best had in person rather than over the phone. During several days of texting, Jordan shared with Kimberly that she had told Cody she was on her period to avoid having sex. But they were supposed to discuss it today. Jordan later mentioned that if her husband forced her to do something, she might have a mental breakdown. On the evening of July 7th, after having dinner with friends, Kimberly received another message from Jordan. In it, Jordan said stating that she wanted to talk to Cody about her true feelings. Kimberly wished them understanding and resolution. Later, at 9 p.m., Jordan appeared at Kimberly's door, saying the conversation hadn't gone well. Cody had gotten angry, and she had left to see her brother. From all this, it seems that from the very beginning, Jordan knew where to find Cody. Her testimony about him wanting to go to Glacier Park that day, and her silence about his disappearance seemed suspicious. Kimberly had a gut feeling that Jordan was involved in Cody's death. Detectives were already skeptical of Jordan's story, given the numerous inconsistencies in her account. Their suspicions grew when Kimberly provided evidence in the form of text messages. Then, the police discovered the IP address of the email, which revealed that it was created and sent from Jordan's father's house. This contradicted Jordan's claim that Cody had left that night and they spent it apart. Recordings of phone conversations revealed that Jordan was lying, as both phones and their owners were in Glacier Park at 9:15 p.m. Using this time frame, police obtained CCTV footage from the park's entrance, which showed Cody's car and both Cody and Jordan inside. Jordan was then asked to come to the police station and tell the truth about what happened that night. During questioning, Jordan was forced to recount what happened on the day of the incident. She revealed that she had opened up to Cody about her feelings, which led to a heated argument. Cody suggested that if she truly felt this way, they should consider annulling their marriage. However, Jordan was hesitant, fearing the potential damage to her reputation that would come with getting divorced just 8 days after their wedding. Then, they got into their car and drove to a national park, and they continued their argument. At one point, Jordan mentioned something about a blindfold. As they walked across a bridge and climbed over a fence, their argument escalated. Jordan suggested that they should wait a bit before getting married, but Cody disagreed. They continued to argue. Eventually, Cody tried to grab she. However, she said the incident that followed was a result of anger. Despite her assertion that it was an accident, but the policeman did not believe it. Instead of running for help, Jordan attempted to forge an email on her father's computer. The question remains as to why Cody the need to climb over the edge of the cliff, especially if he was afraid of heights. Even for those who aren't afraid of heights, climbing a 300-foot cliff in the dark and blindfolded is a huge challenge. According to recent information, Jordan was charged with the murder of Cody Johnson just 8 days after their wedding. She will be released, but placed under house arrest and must undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Friends of Cody believe that everything is progressing well and that justice will soon be served. Jordan was initially arrested and charged with second-degree murder and perjury. But these charges were later increased. The prosecutor's office first charged Jordan with second-degree murder for allegedly pushing her husband, Cody, off a cliff in Glacier National Park. However, her charges were later upgraded to first-degree murder. Some of Jordan's friends, who have known her since childhood, mentioned that she was crying hysterically before reaching the altar and seemed to have no joy about getting married. Many people noticed her strange behavior, observing that she acted as if nothing had happened, showing no emotion. When Jordan's trial began, her defense team argued for a second-degree murder conviction, claiming it was an accident during a heated argument. However, the prosecution insisted it was more than an accident. Evidence suggested that Jordan told Cody she had a surprise for him, and a bandage-like item was found near the body, indicating a deliberate act. Additionally, phone calls, text messages, a fake email, her failure to notify anyone of her husband's disappearance, and her lack of emotion after the incident strengthened the prosecution's case, suggesting that Jordan may have planned the murder and intended to blame someone else. On the second day of the hearing, prosecutors gathered evidence that undermined Jordan's defense strategy. During the trial, a video of the police interrogations was shown, revealing to the jury how she lied to the police sergeant. She also deceived her own sixth brother, who testified that during the search, he cried and begged her to tell the truth, but she lied again. On December 13, 2013, just 4 days after the trial began, Jordan's defense announced that she entered the courthouse as a free woman and left in handcuffs. She surprised everyone by changing her plea to second-degree murder. Jordan stood before the judge and admitted the truth about what happened in Glacier National Park. She said at the time, she wasn't considering the consequences and recklessly pushed Cody. When she pleaded guilty, Cody's mother began to cry. Contrary, her parents remained silent throughout the trial and left the courthouse quietly at the end, leaving their daughter in the custody of the U.S. Marshals. As a result of her guilty plea, Jordan Graham was sentenced to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole. In exchange, prosecutors dropped the first-degree murder charge and 1 count of perjury. Jordan filed an appeal to withdraw her guilty plea on March 26, 2014, but the appeal was denied. After everything ended, Cody's friends tried to make sense of what truly happened. They insisted that, despite any anger or frustration Cody felt towards Jordan, but he loved her. He would be willing to end the marriage if it would make Jordan happy. No one could figure out why Jordan killed her husband. She came from a religious family with strict rules, and perhaps in her youth, she made some mistakes and feared confessing to her husband. Alternatively, due to her parental upbringing, she may not be ready for a marital relationship, leading to psychological trauma and shyness towards men. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Ellen Greenberg. Ellen Greenberg was born in New York on June 23, 1993, as the only child of Joshua and Sandy Greenberg. At the time of the events, she was 27 years old and living in Philadelphia. Ellen grew up in a family filled with love and was a cheerful, outgoing girl. In high school, she played softball and golf, excelling as a competitive athlete. She was well-liked and had many friends. Her mother said that she was a special person, able to connect people with each other. After graduating from college, Ellen earned a degree in communications from the University of Pennsylvania. Even so, she felt this was not her true passion. As a result, she took evening classes at the university and eventually earned a teaching degree. After completing her studies, she quickly found a job as a first-grade teacher in Philadelphia. In 2008, Ellen met Samuel Goldberg, the son of a famous family in the area. They started dating soon after. Deeply in love, they soon decided to live together. By 2011, they were engaged and planning to marry in August. Ellen was thrilled and joyfully prepared for the wedding, trying on her dress and sending out invitations. She had no idea that incident would soon take a strange and unexpected turn. On January 26, 2011, while Ellen was at work, Philadelphia had a major snowstorm, prompting the school to close early. Ellen returned to the apartment she shared with her fiancé, Samuel. At around 5 p.m., Samuel went to the gym, he unaware it would be the last time he saw Ellen alive. When he returned at 5:45 p.m., he found the apartment door locked from the inside. He knocked repeatedly, called Ellen's name, phoned her multiple times, and sent 9 text messages, but received no response. Then, he asked the security guard for help to break down the door, but the guard refused, citing rules against leaving post. Determined, he broke down the door himself. Inside, he discovered a horrific scene. Ellen was sitting on the kitchen floor, leaning against the cabinets, with multiple wounds. He immediately called 911. The operator instructed him to check if Ellen was breathing and to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation. However, he noticed a knife stuck in her chest, preventing him from starting resuscitation. Tragically, Ellen had already passed away. When the police arrived to inspect the scene, they found that the apartment's entrance had not been forced, and inside, everything appeared to be in order, with no signs of a struggle. The door was locked from the inside, and the latch was secured in the usual way until Samuel broke it down, making it unlikely that an intruder had entered. The police also observed that Ellen's hands had no defensive wounds. Despite her multiple injuries, it seemed improbable that she had inflicted them on herself. Nevertheless, waiting for the forensic examination results, the police concluded that Ellen had ended her life, even though there was no note explaining her actions. Additionally, there were fruits on the kitchen table, indicating that Ellen might have been planning to make a fruit salad when she supposedly decided to end her life. The police took Samuel to the station to provide testimony. By this time, Ellen's parents had received the sad news over the phone. They lived in Harrisburg, a 2-hour drive away. When they learned that their only daughter had passed away, they completely collapsed. The very next day, information about Ellen's death has changed. The autopsy revealed she had 20 wounds, 10 on the front and 10 on the neck from the back. Medical examiners emphasized that these injuries showed that this was a murder. She also had bruises on various parts of her body, both recent and older, making it hard to believe she could inflict neck and head wounds on herself from behind. Especially because at least 2 of these wounds were almost fatal and left her unconscious. Additionally, it takes a great deal of force to cause these injuries, especially head injuries. She was found with a knife stuck in her chest after already sustaining 19 injuries. Could she have done all of this by herself? Despite the evidence that has been found, the police disagreed with autopsy officers' conclusion. Authorities announced that Ellen ended her life. They came to this conclusion because they found no signs of anyone else being there. The door was locked from the inside and the neighbors heard no strange sounds, only Samuel's screams. Additionally, DNA analysis of the knife revealed only Ellen's fingerprints. The bruises on her were explained by the police as injuries from playing sports, even though she had not participated in any sports for several years. Doctors also checked Ellen's mental health and learned from her parents that recently, she has been dealing with anxiety. She had been prescribed 2 medications, both known to have side effects that may cause negative thoughts or behaviors. However, her psychiatrist, Len, stated that she showed no signs of end-her-life thoughts. 2 weeks before the incident, when they met, she seemed fine. In addition, the psychiatrist said had never heard Ellen say that anyone had treated her cruelly. Her family also confirmed this. They described Ellen as a good-natured and cheerful. Her loved ones couldn't believe she would harm herself, as she was happy, preparing for her upcoming wedding, and had even tried on her dress and sent out invitations just days before the incident. Ellen's mother and friends admit that she has been feeling anxious and stressed due to work and wedding preparations. However, they consider this to be normal. The thought that she would harm herself just before her wedding was completely out of character. There was a conflict between the forensic medical examination, which ruled it as murder, and the police, who believed Ellen harmed herself. To resolve this, the doctor decided to send a sample from Ellen's spine to a neurologist at the Forensic Medical Examination Bureau. This was to verify the cause of death. Because if one of her severe neck wounds had penetrated deep enough to reach the spinal cord, causing paralysis, she wouldn't have been able to inflict further wounds. This indicated that someone else was responsible for Ellen's death. 3 months after the incident, the medical examiner retracted his murder hypothesis, suggesting instead that Ellen's neck wounds were not severe enough to cause paralysis and that she could have inflicted them on herself. Ellen's parents were not given a clear explanation for this change in the investigation's direction. They described Ellen as squeamish, noting that she avoided even piercing her ears a second time due to her low pain tolerance, making it hard for them to believe she could harm herself. Despite this, the authorities closed the case. Refusing to accept this decision, Ellen's family decided to pursue their own investigation. They hired top experts, including forensic specialists Kirill Klin and Henry Lee, to consider the evidence and the autopsy report. These experts cast doubt on the police investigation report that Ellen did this to herself. In 2012, Henry noted that the likelihood of murder Ellen is significant. Forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht pointed out that statistically, women rarely use sharp objects to end her life and seldom harm themselves through clothing. On the other hand, Bren, a seasoned detective, investigated Ellen's death. After reviewing the footage, Bren claimed to notice that the bloodstains did not match the position in which Ellen was found, as she was sitting and leaning against the kitchen cabinets. However, there was a trail of blood running horizontally from her nose to her ear, and the blood splatter on her shoes indicated that she was standing when she suffered the injuries. All of this led he to assume that the scene of the incident and the position of the body had been altered. Although Ellen's parents tried, the lawyer failed to change the version of incident, as it would have been necessary to present more compelling evidence. Therefore, the case did not progress and remained unchanged until 2015. Andre, an assistant attorney, did not officially take on the case. However, he was intrigued by the unusual circumstances and decided to review the file to understand what drove Ellen to her actions. Ellen's fiancé, Samuel, found her, and he told the police that the door was locked from the inside, which forced him to kick it open. Andre noted in a photograph from the scene that the lock was a simple hotel-style latch. This type of latch can be locked from both the inside and the outside by turning a screw. An analyst mentioned that this kind of latch typically cannot be broken by a kick without dislodging the door from its frame. Yet, the only damage observed on the door was a missing screw. Additionally, the police considered the fact that Ellen had no defensive wounds. It was unclear in which order her injuries occurred, but the final one was undoubtedly to the heart, where the knife was found. If one of the neck wounds had damaged her bone marrow, she would not have had any opportunity to defend herself. One of Ellen's head wounds, which indicated she was attacked from behind, caught Andre's attention. He raised these concerns with the forensic expert, who said a neurologist had examined Ellen and found no injury. He then asked for an official report to confirm there was no spinal injury, only to be told that no such report existed. It had been lost, suggesting it was more of a rumor that no one had substantiated. At the time, there was no neurologist in the Forensic Medical Examination Bureau, so Dr. Adams was brought in. She allegedly examined Ellen's spine and found no damage. However, it later emerged that no record existed of Dr. Adams being asked to perform this examination. In a 2018 interview, Dr. Adams claims that she did not examine Ellen's spine. Following this, Andre contacted a private investigator for the Greenberg family and recommended hiring a private neurologist. He discovered that Ellen's spine sample was still held at the Forensic Bureau, which seemed unnecessary. The family took this advice and hired Dr. Ross. He concluded in a report that Ellen's spinal cord was damaged by 2 severe wounds on her neck, making it impossible for her to inflict further injuries on herself. At the same time, Andre realized that the data the police had was provided by Samuel, Ellen's fiancé, who was at the scene. This was the only account of what happened in the apartment. Samuel said he had not been with Ellen for 45 minutes, and when he returned, he couldn't open the door. Neighbors said they heard Samuel screaming and calling Ellen's name through the door. Samuel said he became worried and started calling Ellen on the phone, sending her 9 text messages. When he got no response, he went downstairs to ask the building security guard if had any tools to open the door, but the guard refused to help. Later, Samuel claimed he went downstairs several more times, trying to persuade the guard to help him break down the door. In his official statement to the police, he said the guard was with him when he kicked the door open and entered. However, the guard told both the police and Ellen's family that he never left his post and did not accompany Samuel into the apartment. Additionally, the guard noted that Samuel, who claimed to have been at the gym, was wearing boots instead of sneakers. On the other hand, Samuel called 911 at 6:33 p.m., which means that an hour had already passed since he returned to the apartment and attempted to contact Ellen. This is very strange when analyzed. Let's think, he goes to the gym for half an hour. Later, when he returned home, he called Ellen to open the door, but she did not answer him. He shouts her name, tries to call her on the phone and sends her 9 text messages. How long should it take to realize that something is wrong? 10 to 20, maybe 30 minutes, but not an hour. Another strange thing that Andre discovered is that Samuel, before calling 911, made 2 calls, one to his parents and another to his uncle, who is a lawyer. Moreover, they arrived at the scene before the emergency services, and it was Samuel's parents who informed Ellen's parents about what happened. One thing is clear, no one would react in the same way as Samuel. Anyone would ask for help as soon as possible to try to save the life of the person they love, right? Andre listened to Samuel's call to 911, and he was surprised to hear Samuel speak in a calm tone. Even as Samuel said things like my God, his fiancée, there is blood, his voice remained steady. When the emergency services worker asked him to describe the situation, he ignored the request and instead talked about his trip to the gym and his return home. When they instructed him to perform CPR, Samuel asked, "Does he really need to do this?" After spending 2 or 3 minutes supposedly performing CPR, he suddenly told Day that he had just found a knife stuck in Ellen's chest. Remarkably, although he was beside her the whole time, but before that he had not seen it. This was no small tool, but a 10-inch long meat cleaver. It was clearly visible. After discovering it, he told Day that Ellen must have fallen on the knife. Following this, Samuel was taken to the police station to give a statement. He did so only in the presence of his lawyer and provided a very brief statement. After that, he refused to speak to detectives again, despite their repeated attempts to question him. It seemed there was no way to get him to talk. These things made Ellen's family believe that she was murdered. A neurologist hired by Ellen's family discovered a bone marrow perforation and also found signs of strangulation and bruising. However, many researchers reviewed the footage at the scene and were surprised to see only a small amount of blood. Ellen had 20 injuries, which raised suspicions that the crime scene may have been tampered with. However, the investigation did not conduct any crucial tests. The police did not even examine the trash after arriving at the scene. They simply observed and assumed she had died naturally, and without protecting the scene. Additionally, the day after this tragic incident, Samuel's uncle, cousin, and brother visited the apartment, supposedly to retrieve a suit. They took Samuel's laptop, Ellen's laptop, and her cell phone. The police only seized these items on January 29th, 3 days later. Upon examination, the laptops showed search queries about ending one's life. Yet, the official report filed in April 2011 did not mention these searches. Ellen's parents and friends slightly changed their views about Samuel after the incident. They never labeled he as a suspect or culprit, but they did have doubts. They realized they had noticed changes in Ellen's behavior weeks before the incident but didn't think much of it at the time. Her friends observed that she started consulting Samuel on every decision, which was unusual for her. Ellen, once a happy girl, had become worried and insecure. One day, she told her parents she wanted to quit her job and move back home. She assuring them it had nothing to do with Samuel and she was fine. Her parents told her she could come home whenever she needed and advised her to seek help for her anxiety. In 2019, Deputy Coroner and Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences Gregory MacDonald presented a report supporting the police's version of incident. He stated that Ellen had inflicted superficial wounds on herself, as people often start with shallow cuts before going deeper. However, the deep wounds and marks that looked like signs of an attack also made him suspicious. After the incident, Samuel continued to contact the Greenberg family for a year, but their relationship eventually faded. He later sent them an email announcing his wedding. Today, he is married, has 2 children and lives a normal life, completely unrelated to the Greenberg family. The Greenberg family and their attorney have filed a lawsuit against the medical examiner, who performed the autopsy, and the Philadelphia County Coroner's Office to change and explain why the case was closed. In May 2020, a Philadelphia court finally supported their claim. The family hopes to receive the case file, which they were previously denied access to. There is also a CCTV video from the building. It does not show anything unusual, it only confirms the time Samuel left and returned to the apartment. They also asked to see the 911 call recording. These procedures were delayed, and the trial was rescheduled for 2021. If they win, the case will be reclassified and investigated as a murder. However, due to the time that has passed and the investigation's shortcomings, many clues have been lost forever, such as the luminol test. The Pennsylvania Attorney General's office closed the case in July 2022. The case has been transferred to the Chester County District Attorney's Office, which has assigned new investigators and a prosecutor to take over. This change was supported by Ellen's parents. They have always maintained that their daughter did not end her life. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Michaela Costanzo. Michaela Constance was born on May 3, 1994, in the small town of West Endeavor, Elko County, Nevada, USA. She was the youngest daughter of Celia and Theodore. She has two sisters named Christina and Delicia. She is famous for her cheerful personality, and she also easily spreading joy to her family and friends. She has a unique perspective on life. She uses her sensitivity to see the good in people and situations. Michaela was very close to her sisters, and they looked so alike that it was sometimes hard to tell them apart. In high school, Michaela became well known and popular. Initially, she stood out for her excellent grades, and later for her impressive performances on the track and field team, which she practiced diligently. Her peers saw her as a star. She also loved writing poetry, with a passion for literature and a dream of becoming a writer. When given the opportunity to demonstrate her storytelling skills, she eagerly took on the job of editing the school newspaper. Christina, her sister, witnessed her success firsthand, as they went to school together every day. Michaela and her mother, Celia, have a strong relationship, largely due to their frequent and open communication. Celia worked the night shift at a local casino, and little girl kept her informed of all her activities through messages. This thing allowed Celia to feel at ease, help her know where Michaela is and who she is with. This time, Michaela was going to meet Cody Patton, an acquaintance from childhood. Although they had grown apart over the years, they were reconnecting. 19 years old, Cody was also in high school and was popular, mainly because he was an outstanding football player on the school's team. His 2-meter height intimidated his peers, and his personality drew mixed reactions. At times, Cody could be extremely nice, but he also had a quick temper and could become easily irritated. Mickey's mother, Celia, recognized this about him. She acknowledged that Cody was an interesting young man who be incredibly sweet and charming. However, he was also emotionally unstable, making it difficult for both his classmates and parents to accept him. This may be why he aimed to join the Marine Corps after high school. He hopes it will help him find direction and purpose in life. Toni Fratto, Cody's girlfriend, was a strong supporter of his future plans. At 19, she was a former high school beauty queen and was deeply religious. Toni's parents still approve of Toni and Cody's relationship, even though Cody is not religious. Over time, Cody and Toni grew closer, and she became fully devoted to him. They got engaged and held an official ceremony at church. However, Cody's impulsive and hot-tempered nature remained an issue. After a heated argument with his father, Cody asked Toni if he could stay with her family. Her parents, Casey and Claude, hesitated when Toni suggested this idea, creating family tension. Toni's love for Cody, a young man with problems, was already a concern. Toni's parents feared that refusing Cody's request might lead their daughter to run away with him. So, they agreed to let Cody move in. They hope this will help them take care of their daughter, while also helping Cody succeed in the future. Over time, Toni's relationship with Cody's parents improved, and they acknowledged that Cody was not a stranger to their family. However, Toni remained uneasy. Even though Cody has proven to her that he wants to be with her, but she felt uncertain about their relationship, especially during his interactions with Michaela. Toni kept a diary to express her fears. She fears that Cody will fall in love with Michaela, and that he might leave her for Michaela. This tormented Toni, and her suspicions were not unfounded. Cody was secretly seeing someone else, but it wasn't Michaela, it was an older woman from out of town. Instead of reassuring Toni, he took advantage of her jealousy for his own amusement. He provoking her by interacting with Michaela in the school hallways and sending explicit texts. Toni responded to these provocations by publicly insulting Michaela. Michaela started a relationship with Javier, a young man from school. She wasn't interested in Cody, neither romantically nor as a friend. Therefore, it was unpleasant for her to encounter Toni, who was jealous and often insulted her. The situation worsened as Toni's attacks became more frequent, and arguments between Toni and Cody increased. They discussed their issues in front of classmates. On Thursday, March 3, 2011, Michaela went to school as usual. Christina informed Michaela that she couldn't pick Michaela's up after her running practice because she had a race out of town. Meanwhile, Cody had borrowed a van from a woman he was seeing and exchanged several text messages with Michaela throughout the day. After track practice, around 5 p.m., Michaela decided to walk home since it was only 2 kilometers away. As Michaela was leaving through the back door of the school, she encountered Cody. He attacked her, tied her hands, and forced her into a van. He then picked up Toni. They drove to the outskirts of town, to a vast desert area known as the Gravel Pits, about 8 kilometers west of the Nevada-Utah border. Once there, Cody and Toni pulled the girl out of the van, began beating her, and insulted her with horrible words. After hitting her several times with a shovel, they inflicted knife wounds on her and watched her die. They then removed Michaela's clothes and burned them along with her other belongings. Using the same shovel, Cody dug a shallow grave, placed the body inside, covered it with soil, camouflaged it with vegetation, and then fled the scene with Toni. When Michaela didn't show up and didn't answer calls or texts, her mother, Celia, became worried. As it was getting dark, she decided to leave work early. Celia returns home to find that her 2 older daughters, Christina and Delicia, have been asking around to see if they know where Michaela is. However, no one knows where Michaela is. So, she went to the police to report her youngest daughter, Michaela, missing. The West Wendy police immediately launched an investigation, led by experienced detective Donald Beckham. When they asked Celia if she had been in contact with Michaela in the past few hours, she replied no. The next morning, the police interviewed Michaela's classmates and friends, including Cody. Cody declared that the last time he saw her was with her boyfriend in front of the school gate. However, this contradicted the accounts of other witnesses. They said they saw Michaela at the back of the building after school. Meanwhile, at home, Celia is extremely scared and uncertainty. Delicia called and texted Michaela several times, hoping for a response. When they discovered Michaela hadn't come home the night before, Christina had dismissed it as teenage rebellion, but now she has changed her mind. Meanwhile, search parties scoured the desert around the city, while the police focused on questioning people close to Michaela, including her boyfriend Javier. He mentioned that Michaela was not someone who would hide things or act strangely. After 2 days of searching, investigators found several unusual things in the desert. They found fresh tire tracks, leading to a spot with fresh blood stains. There was also a suspicious-looking mound of dirt, covered in bushes. Detectives alerted forensic experts, and they quickly arrived at the scene. Upon excavation, they found Michaela's body, showing signs of beatings on her face and neck. A tie was also found in her hand. The police then reviewed the school CCTV footage for more evidence. As soon as Michaela's family was informed that her body had been found, Delisha broke down completely. Delisha felt as if a part of her had been taken away. She couldn't work or focus on anything because she kept thinking about her younger sister's image, Michaela. Investigators have begun looking into Michaela's phone activity and her social connections. They discovered that at the time Michaela went missing, she had been calling and texting Cody, making him a suspect in the case. Further evidence came from school surveillance footage, which showed she and Cody together in the hallway leading to the exit. A few minutes later, she was gone. On the evening of March 6th, Cody arrived at the police station for questioning, accompanied by his father, Keith. During the interrogation, officers showed him video footage from the school's surveillance cameras, but he insisted he was not involved in the incident. Meanwhile, lawyers and investigators gave Cody time to review the case materials and allowed him to speak privately with Keith. Worried, Keith urged his son to tell the detectives everything. Keith begs him to understand the severity of his actions. Now, he must make amends by answering to Michaela's family. He accepted the possible consequences and expressed his readiness to face them. He also told his story of the incidents that took place that day. Cody recounted that after school, he and Michaela went for a walk to the gravel quarry. While there, she asked him to break off his engagement to Tommy and start dating her instead. When he refused, they had a heated argument. He claimed that Michaela hit him in the chest, and in self-defense, he pushed her away. Unfortunately, she hit her head on the car's rear bumper and began to convulse due to the strong impact. Panicking, he tried to knock her out by hitting her head with a shovel, but she stayed conscious. He then cut her throat. Once he realized Michaela was dead, he buried her. When questioned by the police, he said he thought about taking her body to a dump, but couldn't bring himself to do it. When asked about the zip ties on her wrists, he explained they were part of a plan to dispose of the body. After burying her, he sat there crying for several hours before going to find Tony. Despite his detailed account, Cody was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, possibly facing a death sentence. In this situation, Cody's family hired John Hudson, a well-known defense attorney. He specializes in helping murderers not receive the death penalty. Michaela's family didn't just feel the pain of losing their daughter, but were also in disbelief that Cody had so brutally killed his childhood friend. Christina was especially shocked and believed that if he was truly guilty, someone must have forced him to do it. On the other hand, from the start, Celia never believed his confession. She doesn't believe that Michaela considers Cody a friend, let alone ask him to be with Michaela's. Additionally, as a mother, she knew very well that Michaela hated scandals. When Cody was arrested, Tony wrote numerous letters to he, called him, and visited him whenever she could. She said she missed him so much and she would always support him. Meanwhile, the police tried to investigate further, hoping to find useful clues in their conversation. Tony's parents, Claude and Casey, were shocked by the incident and even asked Cody why he committed the crime. Cody simply replied that he didn't know why he did it. The lawyer pointed out that Cody's confession didn't explain all of Michaela's injuries, he suggesting that it was not an accident as Cody claimed. The injuries suggested they weren't caused solely by a shovel, implying that someone acted out of anger. To understand the situation better, the lawyer decided to question Tony. As the interrogation progressed, Tony appeared cold and indifferent. Her emotionless attitude is completely inappropriate, since she is Cody's wife, the man facing the death penalty in this case. In April 2011, just weeks after Michaela's death, Tony's parents left town, leaving her alone at home. That morning, Keith, Cody's father, arrived at her house and took her for a drive. During their conversation, he persuaded her to visit Cody's defense attorney and tell what happened. At the attorney's office, Toni agreed to let lawyer John document her account, which turned out to be completely different from what she had previously stated. Toni claims that after school, she received a text message from Cody, saying that he had kidnapped Michaela. The three of them then headed to the gravel pits. When Michaela and Cody got out of the car, they started arguing, but Toni said she couldn't see what happened. She only heard a noise that alarmed her, and she got out of the car to see what was going on. She saw Michaela lying on the ground and Cody digging what appeared to be a grave. When he stopped, Michaela was already unconscious. Then, they hit her several times with a shovel, and when she showed no signs of life, they took turns stabbing her. Toni also admitted to sitting on Michaela's feet to restrain her during her convulsions. The lawyer John, representing Cody and not Toni, quickly revealed Toni's confession to the police. Consequently, Toni, who was not initially a suspect, was arrested and charged with murder without bail. Forensic experts collected samples from Toni's home, car, and clothing to look for evidence that she was present at the murder scene. In mid-June 2011, the court decided that Toni should also stand trial for murder and kidnapping. The preliminary hearing was set for August 2nd, but in January 2012, Toni accepted a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. In his testimony, Toni said that Cody was angry with Michael from the beginning. When she entered the van, she noticed that Michaela was very scared. Michaela sat in the back with her hands raised to her face. As they drove into the desert, Cody asked her to help him kill Michaela. Then, Cody asks Toni to watch Michaela while he digs a hole. Once he was done, he forced she to hit Michaela. She refused, so Cody began to beat Michaela. The next, he made she strike Michaela with a shovel. The blow hit Michaela in the shoulder. She then sat on the ground, holding Michaela's legs, and he attempted to slit Michaela's throat with a knife. 3 months later, the district judge sentenced Toni Fratto to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 18 years. The judge described it as the most brutal murder he had witnessed in his 20-year career. The motive for Michaela's murder remained unclear. On Wednesday, May 9, 2012, Cody appeared in court, pleading guilty to first-degree murder, also to avoid the death penalty. On Friday, August 24, in Elko Court, Cody Patton was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He was imprisoned in Nevada State Prison. Later, in an interview with a well-known television company, Toni shared a more dramatic version of the tragic story. She revealed that Cody had been abusive and controlling of her throughout their time together. She admitted that because of the abuse, she was unable to fight back against him. Looking back, she believed she could have been his next victim. She also accused he of forcing her to participate in Michaela's murder. She said after witnessing him brutally beating Michaela, she feared for her life, leaving her with no choice but to comply. Michaela's mother, Celia, was unable to work for a long time and avoided going to restaurants where she had previously visited with Michaela. She feels sad about her increasingly distant relationship with her other daughter, Delisha. She explains that the tragedy of Michaela's murder changed Delisha so much that Delisha dropped out of school and left the city, estranged from her family. Everything at home reminded her of Michaela, which was overwhelming. The tragedy devastated 3 families: her family, Toni's family, and Cody's family. It will take Michaela's family and friends a long time to get over this loss. Cody will never see his family outside of prison again. Although Toni may be released from prison in the future, her father sadly says that when that happens, he may not be alive. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Molly Tibbetts. Molly Tibbetts was a vibrant young woman born in San Francisco on May 8, 1998, to Rob and Laura Tibbetts. She had two brothers, Jake and Scott. Molly was fortunate to grow up with loving parents and began to excel in school shortly after starting second grade. Life presented Molly with an unexpected challenge. Things were going well for her and her parents until they decided to divorce. In 2007, Molly moved to Brooklyn, Iowa, with her mother and brother. Brooklyn was her mother's hometown, and Molly now had the opportunity to experience her teenage years in this quiet town. The move was difficult for Scott, Jake, and Molly, but their caring parents provided essential support. Their father, Rob, maintained a close relationship with his children. Although he couldn't be there all the time, he was determined to do everything he could to help them. Brooklyn is a small town with a population of only 1,400. Life there is calm, a stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of San Francisco. Molly and her two brothers have adapted perfectly to their new home. Molly plans to continue her studies at Brooklyn College. She is a sociable person who makes many friends. Molly is smart, energetic, positive, and cheerful. In 2015, Molly met a senior named Dalton Jack at her Brooklyn school, and she instantly liked him. This encounter took place on a chilly October evening while Dalton and his friend were sitting in a pickup truck after playing football. A few younger students approached them, including Molly. Dalton was immediately taken with her. She made him laugh and he found her beautiful. They exchanged phone numbers and soon began having lunch together and going to the movies. From that point on, they fell in love and Dalton considering her his everything. Molly and Dalton's love for each other deepened over time. 2 years later, when Molly moved from Brooklyn to study psychology at the University of Iowa, she maintained her relationship with Dalton. While she was in Iowa, Dalton stayed in Brooklyn to pursue a career in construction, but this did not affect his feelings for her. They managed to see each other almost every weekend and even on some weekdays. Her freshman year at university passed quickly. By the end of May 2018, she returned to Brooklyn for the summer. During her break at home, Molly kept herself busy throughout the day. She worked at a local children's day camp at Green Regional Medical Center, and in the evenings, she participated in activities to prepare for her sophomore year. Molly also made time to go jogging almost every evening. She split her time between her mother's house and her boyfriend Dalton's house on the western edge of Brooklyn. Unlike university students, Dalton didn't have a summer vacation and worked most weekdays. His construction work is sometimes local and sometimes he works across the state. On July 18, 2018, Molly visited Dalton's house. Dalton lived there with his brother and their dogs. But both of them worked away from home. Dalton was working on a project on Highway 61 near Oak. Molly agreed to take care of the dogs and stay at Dalton's house to work and study. It was a hot day, so Molly stayed inside with her dogs and her laptop, hoping for a cooler temperature. The day seemed normal. She spent her free time chatting with her boyfriend on the phone, looking for something to eat, or engaging in conversations on Twitter. As the sun set, the weather cooled down. This is a good time for Molly to go for a run. Around 7:30 p.m., she left her laptop open, sent Dalton a selfie, put on her workout clothes, and headed to the cornfield for her workout. However, Molly never returned. She was missing that night. Dalton, who had not heard from her that night, assumed she was just busy and had gone to bed. But the next morning, when Molly's messages remained unanswered, he began to worry. He contacted friends to ask if they had heard from Molly, but they had no idea where she was. All of her social media accounts are inactive. The panic really began when her boss called Dalton to find out why she had missed work. Molly was always on time for her job and had never missed a day before, so her absence was unusual. Dalton was worried and wondered what could have happened to her. Her silence made Dalton, her family, and friends feel uneasy. By the end of the day, the police and the local community were mobilized to search for Molly. Missing posters were quickly plastered around the city and surrounding areas. Shortly after, Molly's father Rob flew from California to join the search efforts. In mid-July, Iowa was experiencing hot summer days, and the surrounding cornfields made visibility difficult. Police announced on television that the search for Molly is ongoing. While there are no new updates, the search continues. Molly, a 20-year-old University of Iowa student, went missing last Wednesday in Brooklyn. She was last seen by her neighbor jogging with her dogs, wearing shorts, a sports bra, and sneakers. At the time, Molly's whereabouts were unknown. The only confirmed sighting was when a neighbor saw her running east of town that evening. Police had no further leads. As the weeks passed, the reward for information about Molly had increased significantly to nearly $400,000. They even created a website to encourage the public to share any information about Molly. Police also analyzed data from Molly's fitness tracker to determine her running route. Despite all the efforts, the investigation remained unsolved until mid-August. A person in northeast Brooklyn was reviewing surveillance footage when she noticed something unusual. Concerned, she reported her findings to the police, leading to a crucial discovery. The footage showed a 1951 Chevrolet with chrome side mirrors and handles. Initially, nothing unusual appeared, but the car returned and appeared on surveillance cameras multiple times. Then, at 8:07 p.m., the same Chevrolet was recorded again, this time speeding away. Based on the footage, the car, which was behaving erratically at the same time and place that Molly went missing, caught the attention of the police. They began searching for the car in the small town. They quickly located it. A day after reviewing the video of the black Chevrolet, deputy sheriffs spotted the vehicle on the road. Instead of stopping immediately, he followed the car until the driver stopped. The deputy sheriff approached the driver's window and identified him as John Bath. When asked about Molly's disappearance, John claimed he had no knowledge of her and was not involved. He was allowed to leave, but his freedom was short-lived. Just 2 days later, police officers visited John's workplace at a dairy farm and noticed he was now driving a different car, which belonged to his girlfriend. At this point, the police began to take notice of John, but they had no evidence that he was involved in Molly's disappearance. The police took John to the local police station for further questioning. Although John was not required to answer their questions, he chose to cooperate. The interrogation lasted several hours, and ultimately, John confessed. However, his real name was Christian Bahina Rivera, and he lived and worked in rural Polk County near Brooklyn. Originally from Mexico, he had entered the United States illegally at the age of 17. Because he could not work legally, he was not registered in any official system, including at his job on a farm near Brooklyn. During questioning, police asked Christian if he knew where Molly was, and he admitted that he had seen her the night she disappeared. He explained that he had noticed her before deciding to approach her. When he ran over to strike up a conversation, Molly did not respond. When he persisted, she took out her phone and warned him to leave or she would call the police. The next day, August 21st, after more than 10 hours of questioning, Christian agreed to lead the police to a remote area outside of Brooklyn. When the police arrived and got out of their car, they found Molly's body. She was lying under some corn stalks, wearing only a sports bra and socks. Christian confessed that when he confronted Molly and she threatened to call the police, he acted out of anger and ended up killing her, then hiding her body in a cornfield. Molly suffered between 7 and 12 stab wounds to the chest, ribs, neck, and skull, ultimately leading to her death. This tragic news has left Molly's family, friends, and acquaintances heartbroken. As they learned more about the circumstances of Molly's death, their grief turned to anger. On August 22, Christian was charged with first-degree murder. Concerns that he might flee led to his bail being raised from $1 million to $5 million. As the investigation into Molly's disappearance turns into a murder case, developments related to her case continue to surface both in public and in the media. The following month, Christian denied any involvement in the case, despite initially confessing to Molly's murder. He later recanted his confession. Police made significant progress in the case. They searched Christian's black Chevrolet and discovered blood in both the trunk and on the rims. Testing revealed that the blood belonged to Molly, indicating that she had been in Christian's trunk that night. A series of bureaucratic delays postponed the court case. The public trial of Christian was delayed for several months and moved to another county for safety reasons. In August 2019, Christian's defense team submitted a 20-page motion arguing that his confession should not be used as evidence. They claimed he was not properly informed of his Miranda rights because of his foreign nationality. This means that although he admitted to killing Molly, he did not receive a warning that anything he said could be used against him in court. Therefore, his confession could not be used as evidence. In addition, the judge postponed Christian's trial until 2020 to allow more time to review the case. In 2020, the trial was postponed again. On May 17, 2021, Christian Bahena Rivera's trial finally began. His defense team argued that the police had violated his rights before charging him with murder. They claimed that the police had used illegal interrogation methods to force Christian to confess. When this approach failed, the defense attempted to blame Molly's boyfriend, Dalton, claiming that he had cheated on her 3 years earlier and then killed her. However, Dalton had a solid alibi for the time of Molly's disappearance. Although he was absent from work for nearly 2 hours, several co-workers were able to confirm his whereabouts during that time, and it was clear that he loved Molly very much. Christian eventually testified, but he changed his story. He claimed that 2 armed men came to his house, forced him to drive them until they found Molly, then killed her and forced him to drive to a cornfield, threatening his son's life if he revealed what had happened. Christian's confession, the surveillance footage, Molly's blood found in the trunk of his car, and his own incredible story all pointed clearly to his guilt. On Friday, May 28, Christian Bahena Rivera was convicted of murdering Molly Tibbetts. After just 7 hours of jury deliberation, Christian was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. After the verdict, Christian's girlfriend, who had been raising their son Will, disappeared from Brooklyn, leaving his son on the farm without a family. With nowhere else to go, Will was eventually adopted by Molly's mother, Laura. This adoption allowed Will to continue his education and move toward a brighter future. Her parents consistently chose love over hate, which helps explain Molly's positive character. The support didn't end there. Hundreds of people came together at the University of Iowa to celebrate Molly's memory. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Jeffrey Hazelwood. Natalie Henderson, Carter Davis, and Jeffrey Hazelwood are 3 residents of Roswell. Natalie and Carter are friendly, intelligent, and optimistic. Natalie is actively involved in school activities, often representing the school at social events, while Carter balances academics and sports. Jeffrey, on the other hand, struggles with his studies, with his grades and academic performance significantly lower than his peers. As a teenager, Jeffrey was sent to a military-style school, and after graduating, he remained unemployed for several years. He later found a job in government, which allowed him to support himself. Jeffrey had a challenging childhood. He was born on July 10, 1996, into difficult circumstances. His mother, Sherry, was only 19 years old when he was born, and Sherry's partner abandoned her before Jeffrey was born. During her pregnancy, Sherry struggled with drug use. Those around her realized that she was incapable of caring for a child. As a result, when Jeffrey was 6 months old, he moved in with his grandparents. Although Jeffrey's grandparents loved him, his troubled relationship with his mother leading to him being labeled a difficult child. Throughout his teenage years, there were many incidents reported in Jeffrey's family. Jeffrey frequently engaged in dangerous activities. On one occasion, he wrote a note saying he was going to spend a few days in the wilderness testing his survival skills. In another disturbing incident, he took his grandfather's gun, prompting neighbors to call the police. His actions increasingly worried his grandparents, who attempted to hide the weapons. Despite their efforts, Jeffrey, who was smart and determined, successfully broke into a safe and took the knives and swords he loved. By 2013, when Jeffrey turned 16, his grandmother felt the need to report his troubling behavior to the police, likely out of concern for her safety and that of others. Just weeks earlier, he had warned her that his patience would eventually wear thin, and he might hurt someone, although he didn't specify who or when. As a result, Jeffrey was sent to a military school. After returning, he entered a relationship that he cherished deeply. His social media accounts were filled with expressions of love for his girlfriend, mixed with images of wolves, dark quotes, and posts about anger and mortality. No one seemed to notice or help Jeffrey. Eventually, the city of Roswell had a serious problem. On August 1, 2016, a Monday morning, a driver was making a delivery at the local grocery store. At 6 a.m., just as he approached the store, his peaceful morning turned into a nightmare. As he turned the corner toward the delivery area, he was shocked to see two bodies lying side by side in a parking lot, both dead and covered in blood. Panicked, he called the police to report what he had seen. Police quickly arrived at the scene and discovered the bodies of two young people. A man and a woman, both dead. Police spotted two cars parked nearby, and when they ran the license plates, they discovered they belonged to Carter Davis and Natalie Henderson. The young couple came from middle-class families, and neither had a criminal record or any violations. The investigation began with a search of the vehicle and a review of surveillance camera footage from the supermarket. The video showed Carter and Natalie driving through the parking lot at approximately 3 a.m. before disappearing behind the building. Additionally, just minutes before they arrived, a silver Honda had parked in front of the store. After Carter and Natalie passed the Honda, a tall man with long, unkempt hair got out of the Honda and followed them on foot, but then disappeared from view of the surveillance camera. His facial features were unclear, and the video did not capture his license plate number. All police could determine was that the car was silver, a 1990 or 1998 model, and had mismatched wheels. Police contacted the Bureau of Investigation for assistance in finding a suspect. The task was difficult because they needed to compile a list of all Honda owners in the city. After sifting through the data, they narrowed the list down to about 650 vehicles and their owners. This process of elimination was long and difficult, requiring patience and effort on the part of the police. However, their persistence paid off. On August 3, 2016, just 2 days after the discovery of Carter and Natalie's bodies, police located a driver's license that belonged to a Honda owner. This owner, Jeffrey Hazelwood, 20, lived in Roswell and was known to police because of his long black hair. His grandparents were shocked when some police officers knocked on their front door. Their surprise quickly turned to concern when the officers asked about their grandson Jeffrey. They informed the police that they did not know where he was. Jeffrey's grandparents said that they had kicked him out of the house 2 days ago. The police then investigated and found that Jeffrey was staying at his girlfriend's house. They knew the address and set up a perimeter around the house. After finding the boy's car parked in the driveway, the police waited nearby, patiently waiting for Jeffrey to show up. Hours later, Jeffrey finally came out of the house, got into his car and drove away. Undercover police observed Jeffrey as he arrived at a gas station, walked around, and changed his clothes. At that point, officers surrounded him and arrested him on suspicion of the murders of Natalie Henderson and Carter Davis before he could react. Initially, Jeffrey denied killing anyone, but after being held for several days, he was questioned by Officer Jennifer Bennett, who was assigned to Jeffrey's case. During this interrogation, several strange details came to light. When arrested, Jeffrey insisted that he was an innocent bystander and that he had not killed anyone. However, during questioning, he claimed that another man had pressured him into committing the crime. As the interrogation continued, he stopped mentioning his accomplice. Additionally, Jeffrey claimed that a voice in his head had told him to kill Natalie and Carter. Despite Jeffrey's numerous lies and confusing statements, Police Officer Bennett was able to piece together what happened on the night of August 1st. Jeffrey said his troubles began when his grandparents kicked him out of the house. To clear his head, he went to a local Waffle House, but since he had nowhere to stay for the night, he decided to park at the local grocery store. He arrived around 3 a.m. and sat in his car. While he was sitting there, 2 cars pulled into the parking lot, drove past him, circled the building. Feeling bored and lonely, Jeffrey decided to follow them on foot. After the 2 cars parked side by side, Carter Davis got out of the car and got into the back seat of Natalie's car. Natalie then joined him in the back seat, saying they wanted some private time together. Unbeknownst to them, Jeffrey was hiding behind the nearby electrical panel, observing their interaction. However, Jeffrey climbed up a nearby service ladder to get a better view from the roof of the car. Jeffrey later claimed that he did not watch for long. Sadly, Jeffrey obtained his grandfather's gun after breaking into a safe just before being kicked out of his house. What he did next was horrific. He climbed down from the roof, approached Natalie's car, and demanded that Carter exit the vehicle. He struck Carter with the gun. In that moment of panic, Jeffrey realized Carter was taller and stronger, putting him at a disadvantage in a physical struggle. In a shocking act, he raised the gun and shot Carter in the head at close range, then ordered Natalie to get out of the car. Without detailing what he did to her, Jeffrey later shot Natalie in the back of the head after she turned away. After both victims were dead, he ransacked Natalie's car, took her wallet, and drove away. However, Jeffrey's criminal activities did not stop there. That night, he was found at a gas station using Natalie's credit card to fill up his car. Surveillance cameras even recorded Jeffrey wearing a mask to hide his identity. During questioning, he stated that despite having the mask and gun, he did not take any further action. Jeffrey stated that he needed the mask to hide his identity from the person who ordered him to kill Natalie and Carter. After stopping at the gas station, he returned to the bodies. He placed the bodies on the asphalt as they had been found that morning. He then called his girlfriend and asked if he could stay with her until he could sort out his family issues. She had no idea that he had just killed someone, and she welcomed him into her home. Eventually, the police tracked him down and arrested him. During the trial, his behavior was highly erratic. He talked to himself, claimed to hear voices, and even spoke with a British accent, at one point sat shaking, made erratic head movements, and talked to himself. He was also observed conversing with an imaginary dog and pretending to hit it on the head. At a later hearing, Officer Bennett shared Jeffrey's confession, revealing the disturbing details he described about that night. He said he pulled Natalie out of the car, forced her onto the hood, and then shot her in the head. The defense argued that Jeffrey exhibited symptoms of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, Asperger's syndrome, and dissociative identity disorder. While each of these conditions can be controlled individually, the combination of all four conditions makes him an extremely unstable person. However, none of these conditions had been formally diagnosed. As such, he was deemed competent to stand trial and, with appropriate treatment, could become stable enough to understand the proceedings. Given the overwhelming amount of evidence, including forensic material from surveillance camera footage and seized items, the proof against him was strong. The prosecution quickly built a strong case against Jeffrey. The initial trial was scheduled for September 9, 2016, but it was postponed multiple times because he needed treatment. He was moved to a secure psychiatric hospital to continue his care until a new trial date was established. A hearing was conducted to evaluate Jeffrey's competence, particularly his ability to understand the legal proceedings. While he occasionally rocked in his chair, psychologists could not pinpoint his specific mental disorders. However, they diagnosed him with psychosis, which is a disorder that causes a disconnection from reality rather than a mental illness itself. Finally, on May 17, 2017, Jeffrey appeared in court as he was nearing recovery. He was not allowed to speak during treatment, so his attorney spoke on his behalf. The judge offered him a plea deal regarding the murders of Carter and Natalie, which Jeffrey accepted. He was then sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring that Jeffrey would spend the rest of his life in prison or a mental hospital. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Kaylee Sawyer. Kaylee Sawyer was born on March 2, 1993, in Bend, Oregon. At 23, she is a smart, cheerful, and optimistic young woman. She knows how to cherish every moment in life. She lives with her boyfriend, Cameron Reimhofer, in an apartment near their college. They appeared to be the perfect couple, and Cameron really likes Kaylee's parents. Initially, Kaylee aspired to be a photographer and found some success in that area. However, she later took a job as an administrator at a dental clinic, where she showed her best abilities, as she knows how to approach each patient and make them feel comfortable, even if they are nervous about going to the dentist. While working at the clinic and observing the dentists, she realized that she wanted to become a dentist herself. She felt this was her big opportunity, as people trusted her and felt comfortable seeking dental treatment from her. On Saturday evening, July 23, 2016, Kaylee attended a bachelorette party in the city center with a friend and a few coworkers. They had fun dancing, congratulating a colleague and drinking. Since most attendees were middle-aged, the party ended early, around 10:30 p.m. However, Kaylee and a few other young women decided to go to another bar, where they kept drinking, dancing, and having a great time. At the bar, a man began flirting with Kaylee, and Cameron's friend noticed. Friend sent a message to Cameron, letting him know that Kaylee was there with another guy, which made him angry. After midnight, Kaylee, feeling tired and quite drunk, called Cameron to pick her up. Although he was upset with her, but he went to get her right away. Kaylee was at a restaurant with some friends when he arrived. On the way home, they argued because Kaylee had been drinking heavily and talking to another man. When they reached home, a frustrated Cameron got out of the car and went straight to the apartment. Upset from their argument, she stayed in the car to collect her thoughts. After 10 minutes, when she didn't come inside, Cameron received a text from her. She apologized for her behavior and said goodbye, leaving him confused. He quickly ran to the car, but when he got there, the front passenger door was wide open, and she was gone. He called her, and she told him she was out for a walk. She also mentioned that her phone was low on battery, and then the call disconnected. Cameron believed that Kaylee had gone to her friend's house, which was 6 kilometers from campus. He got in his car and drove to her friend's location. Despite he drove slowly and looked around to find her, but he did not see her anywhere. That night, he could not locate her, and her phone went unanswered. He thought she might be out with friends and expected her to return home the next morning. He returned to their apartment and went to bed. However, when he woke up the next morning, there were still no calls from her. And her phone went directly to voicemail. He grew concerned, as this behavior was unusual for Kaylee. Cameron reached out to Kaylee's family to see if they had any information. Her parents told him that she hadn't called them either, but they also believed she could have stayed overnight with friends and would return soon. Cameron then contacted all her friends and co-workers, but no one knew her whereabouts. Growing increasingly worried, he decided to report her missing to the police. When the police arrived, they listened to Cameron's account, but they suggested she would likely return shortly. As a result, the police were in no hurry to search for her. Kaylee did not return home the next day and she missed work. She was a responsible employee who never skipped a day, so it became apparent that something was wrong. The police launched a search for her. Cameron's behavior was odd and caused suspicion. He had shown jealousy towards another man and left in his car to look for her. Her phone suddenly ran out of battery. And Cameron was the last person to have seen her, so he became the primary suspect. Then, he was called in for questioning. During the interrogation, he stuck to his story and cooperated with the investigation by allowing a search of his apartment and car without a warrant. He also took part in the search for Kaylee. Cameron passed a lie detector test, so all charges against him were dropped. The police suspected a man who had flirted with Kaylee might be connected to her disappearance. They began investigating to identify him, seeking witnesses who have seen their interaction or had contact information for him. They eventually located the man, but he was intoxicated that night and couldn't recall many details. He didn't remember Kaylee's name or her phone number and claimed he had not seen her again. The police visited the homes of Kaylee's friends and relatives to check if she had been with them. They only found her car, which she had left at a friend's bachelorette party. This suggested that she had not returned for her car, making it unlikely she had gone elsewhere. Unable to trace her phone, police checked the route she may have taken that night for clues. They looked for signs of a struggle, blood, or surveillance camera footage, but found nothing. Meanwhile, Cameron, along with Kaylee's parents and friends, distributed flyers with her photo throughout the city and shared information about her disappearance on social media. A clue has emerged in the Kaylee case. A rookie police officer named Isabel came to the station with an important story. Her husband, Edwin Lara, who works as a college security guard, had been acting unusually since Sunday. After returning home late from his night shift, he seemed troubled. Eventually, he confessed to she that on the night of Sunday, July 24th, he accidentally struck a young girl with his work vehicle. He claimed the girl was drunk and fell under the wheels, but him unable to stop in time. He also revealed that he hit her body and that her belongings were in their barn. Police quickly arrived at Edwin's home, but he had already escaped. Upon searching the property, they discovered several items: a woman's handbag filled with various personal items and cosmetics, a pair of shoes, strands of light hair, and a large bloody stone. To their shock, these items were also stained with blood. Later, it was confirmed that the hair and belongings belonged to Kaylee, the missing girl. This evidence suggested that Edwin's account of an accident was false. It appeared he had used the stone to harm Kaylee, likely resulting in her death. Despite their thorough search of the house and surrounding area, her body was nowhere to be found. It seemed clear that Edwin had not just vanished, he likely transported the body away in his vehicle. Isabel did not report her husband to the police right away because she feared for her safety. Instead, she pretended to support him and waited some time before going to the police. By then, he had managed to leave the city, making it harder for the authorities to locate him. When the police asked Isabel where he might have gone, she mentioned that his parents lived in Los Angeles, suggesting he could be hiding there. A police officer traveled to Los Angeles, and on the way, they found his car abandoned. They discovered strange notes inside the vehicle, containing numbers and apologies for his actions. The police examined the notes, but they did not lead to any significant clues, and there were no signs of an accident involving the car. They concluded that Edwin was likely heading to his parents' home. Meanwhile, Edwin's phone was not being tracked, and he continued to commit crimes after his escape. He kidnapped a 19-year-old girl named Andrea. He saw her getting into her car after finishing her shift at the store and noticed her using her phone. Quietly, he approached her, opened the passenger door, and got inside her car. Armed with a gun, he threatened her and demanded that she drive him to California. Terrified, she agreed to drive him to California. During the journey, he told her about what he had done to a girl named Kaylee and even showed her a photo of Kaylee along with news articles about his being wanted. He claimed that his car had broken down while he was trying to leave the city and that he was searching for someone to take him to Los Angeles. Edwin initially considered kidnapping a pregnant woman, but he couldn't find one. Instead, he spotted Andrea alone in a parking lot and decided she would be his target. This was terrifying for Andrea, but she tried to remain calm to survive. A few hours later, Edwin thought she was driving too fast and might attract police attention. He ordered her to stop and switch to the passenger seat, then handcuffed her to the car while he took the driver's seat. Andrea realized her only chance of escape was to gain his trust. Andrea said to Edwin that she understood his situation, mentioned that her car was leaking oil, which was true. She suggested they get another car, hoping he might release her. But it didn't work. They stopped at a gas station and a diner, but Edwin instructed her to remain silent and not speak to anyone, otherwise, he will kill her and everyone she talks to. Andrea obeyed and did not talk to anyone, she just trying to signal through her demeanor that something was wrong, but no one noticed. They eventually stopped to spend the night at a motel. Edwin planned to rape her there, and the girl knew this well. Andrea devised a plan to escape. After entering the room, she quietly turned on the alarm on her phone. As Edwin started to bother her, the alarm rang. He became paranoid, thinking it was a police signal and feared he was being followed. However, Andrea said it was a notification so she wouldn't forget to take her medicine. When he asked about her illness, she said she had a venereal disease, causing Edwin to stop bothering her immediately. They lay on opposite sides of the bed, and she was restrained with chains and handcuffs. He tried to sleep but was overwhelmed with panic. Convinced the police were coming for him. Meanwhile, Andrea hoped he would fall asleep quickly so she could make her escape. Eventually, Edwin jumped out of bed and used a disposable phone to call someone, and he speaking in Spanish. Although Andrea couldn't understand him, but he told her they needed to leave urgently. They drove away, but soon the car's oil began to boil. Edwin grew angry and told Andrea they needed to find another car. At that moment, Andrea's hopes for escape vanished. She had anticipated he might leave her with the car and he go on his way, but he had other plans. On their way, they noticed a model car surrounded by several other cars and decided to approach it. An elderly man is loading things into his car. Edwin believed this was the car he was looking for. He took Andrea with him, went to the car, and threatened the elderly man with a gun, demanding the car keys. The man began to call for help, prompting Edwin to shoot at him. Afterward, Edwin grabbed Andrea and ran toward the gas station. By the time the police arrived, the elderly man had survived. At the gas station, Edwin found a car with its doors open. They got inside and drove off, but 3 children were already in the car. A 17-year-old, who had just received his driver's license, was behind the wheel. Edwin threatened little boy with a gun and forced him to drive away from the gas station. The car belonged to a family from Canada who was visiting the US. When the parents returned from shopping at the gas station, they found their car and children gone. They were very frightened and immediately called the police. Edwin ordered the children to throw their phones out the window to avoid being tracked. He claimed to be a dangerous criminal and could kill them all. The children were terrified. However, the teenager convinced Edwin that if he let them go, he would be safer. This was because they would make it more difficult for Edwin to escape, and it would be easier for the police to detect him. He agreed to this. So he dropped the children off at the side of the road and continued driving with Andrea. In a panic, Child realized he still had his phone and called his parents. They, along with the police, quickly located the children. The kids were frightened and reported that they had been kidnapped by a dangerous criminal. They mentioned that Edwin, the kidnapper, had confessed to committing murders. Immediately after that, the police chased after Edwin's car. Edwin regretted his decision to steal the car with the children inside. Aware that the police were after them, he chose to record a video on their journey to California. In the video, he apologized for his crimes and made Andrea post it on her Facebook with a caption that the killers are free. As he grew more paranoid, he told she that he heard helicopters, though she saw and heard nothing. A patrol car began chasing Edwin, and eventually, he was arrested. Andrea couldn't believe she was free, but her nightmare was far from over. After getting out of the car, she was also arrested. Initially, the police suspected she was his accomplice and searched her. They interrogated her, forcing her to prove her innocence. After 18 hours, she was finally released. Police in Bend, Oregon are investigating Kaylee's disappearance and are looking for Edwin because he is the prime suspect. They learned of his arrest and went to the California police station to question him. During the interrogation, Edwin claimed that Kaylee had either been accidentally struck by a car. When police asked for more information, he admitted that he had used a rock to hit her on the head, with the intention of stopping her from screaming, as he believed she was still alive at the time. However, the police informed him that when they checked his car, they found no signs of an accident. Suddenly, Edwin changed his testimony, saying he had intended to pick Kaylee up because he thought she was a prostitute. This seems suspicious because in that area, there are no prostitutes. It is common for students to return home drunk from parties. But usually campus police take these students home. Edwin then gave a seemingly truthful statement. He said that on the night Kaylee disappeared, he was driving his company car around the university area and saw a young, drunk woman walking. Edwin stopped and offered to give Kaylee a ride. Seeing that he was a security guard, she accepted, thinking she would be safe. Unfortunately, he raped her, strangled her, and then killed her by repeatedly hitting her in the head with a rock. He later admitted that he had wanted to kill for a long time and was inspired by serial killers. That night, when he saw Kaylee on the road, he decided she would be his first victim. He had planned other murders for some time. Initially, he was reluctant to reveal where he had disposed of her body, but eventually, he pointed it out to the police on a map. When the police searched the area Edwin indicated, they found a mutilated body that was unrecognizable. The cause of death was determined to be a head injury from a blunt object. As a result, Edwin Lara was charged with Kaylee's murder, rape, along with other crimes including Andrea's kidnapping and carjacking. He was taken to Oregon, where he faced the death penalty. During the trial, he asked to call his lawyer, but that request was denied. During the interrogation, Edwin confessed to the murder, but his testimony was excluded and was not considered at trial. The prosecution needed to prove that Edwin was the one who killed Kaylee and committed other crimes. However, they have a lot of evidence, including items found in his shed. His DNA was on Kaylee, testimony from his wife, and Andrea's testimony where he described Kaylee's murder. The prosecution wanted to ensure that Edwin would be sentenced to life without parole. Edwin reached a plea deal with the prosecution, admitting to attempted murder and kidnapping, but he would not admit to rape in return for a life sentence. In the end, Edwin Lara was found guilty and received 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Subsequently, Kaylee's family sued the university, claiming it failed to properly conduct a psychological evaluation or gather vital information when hiring Edwin as a security guard. They emphasized that the college had provided him with a weapon, handcuffs, and a bulletproof vest, which were used during his crimes. This lawsuit was settled for $2 million. After the incident, the college began conducting background checks on all security guards, implemented psychological testing, and strengthened their security policies. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Mia Skadhoj-Stevn. Late at night on February 5, 2022, a group of young people gathered at a bar. It was cold outside, so everyone was dressed warmly. Mia was wearing dark clothes, except for her white sneakers. The group wanted to have a good time and enjoy the weekend with other college students. And she planned to go home in her friend's car. After spending several hours at a party, they moved between nightclubs along the street until they finally reached one club. Mia danced energetically, even with strangers, and couldn't stop. She drank moderately and wanted to keep the fun going. However, as closing time approached around 6 in the morning, it was time to leave. Everyone hurried out, with many heading home much earlier than Mia. Mia had no one to drive her home, and with the money she had, she couldn't afford a taxi. At the party, she met a 22-year-old man from Aalborg. After the club closed, he waited for her outside. He chatted with Mia and her friends for a while before they all decided to go home. Mia planned to take the bus and contact her friends the next day. However, hours had passed since she said goodbye to her friends on the street, and none of her friends and relatives had been able to contact her. Initially, her family assumed that she and her friends were just out enjoying themselves, and that she was probably at a friend's or boyfriend's house. However, when Mia's boyfriend called, he revealed that he hadn't seen Mia all day and that she had ignored his messages. By noon, Mia's mother was in a panic after calling all of Mia's friends and finding out that no one had seen her since she left the club, and that no one could get in touch with her. Mia was usually responsible and kept in touch, so her lack of response was alarming. The situation became increasingly worrying for her family, especially her mother, who was really scared. It was later confirmed that Mia was last seen at 6 a.m. and since then, no one knew where she was. Mia's family decided to report her disappearance to the police. Although the situation involved a party and a girl who had been drinking, the police quickly began a search. Unfortunately, there were no leads for the investigation. Mia's father drove around the area looking for her, while her mother and sister took to social media to ask for help from anyone with information. They shared photos and descriptions of Mia, including what she was wearing. As such cases are rare in Denmark, the local community came together to support the family, actively sharing posts and information to help raise awareness of the case. The police continued their investigation. They tried to gather information, but unfortunately, the information was very limited. They contacted all local residents in the area where Mia went missing, asking for any relevant documents, especially photos and videos from mobile phones that may have recorded Mia at the party. They also reviewed footage from surveillance cameras in nearby stores and establishments. The situation was complicated by the fact that it took place in a crowded area with many clubs and bars, making it difficult to identify any one person. Police interviewed a young man who had met Mia and was one of the last people to interact with her. However, he had a confirmed alibi because he had left the area in a taxi. Witnesses submitted thousands of video files taken at nearby parties. As a result, police received hundreds of hours of video footage that needed to be scrutinized. It was a huge task, and police spent days reviewing the footage. After reviewing the initial videos, police found no suspicious activity and the statements of Mia's friends were verified. Mia did indeed leave the club at around 6 a.m., chatted briefly with friends, and may have headed toward the bus stop. Meanwhile, the investigation has been looking into Mia's background, hoping to find useful clues. Mia was a lively and kind 22-year-old girl when she went missing. Her family described her as intelligent and full of energy. Mia was studying at Aalborg, the largest university in the country, and was close to graduating from the medical faculty. In addition to her studies, she was an aspiring model and had participated in several photo shoots. There was nothing in her background to suggest that a tragedy would occur. She was not involved in any criminal activities, did not use illegal drugs, and had no history of mental illness. Although her friends noticed that Mia was acting strangely, she drank heavily and flirted while dancing with many strangers, attracting attention with her charm. Could this behavior attract a dangerous person who saw Mia as an easy target? It has been more than a day since she went missing. Police are once again appealing to the public, asking anyone with information to come forward to help locate Mia. They are also reviewing footage of the party that continues to come in, which requires significant resources. All young people with whom Mia interacted that evening, including her friends and new acquaintances, have been brought in for questioning. On the same day, police noticed something unusual in a surveillance camera recording. At 6:09 a.m. on February 6th, the Mia approached a bus stop located 300 meters from the club. It seemed that she was waiting for a bus to return home. After a brief exchange with the driver, she chose not to get into a car and continued to wait for the bus, which then drove away. However, the bus did not arrive. Even at 7:35 a.m., an hour and a half later, she was still standing at the bus stop. It was clear that she was at risk of freezing, as she was not dressed appropriately for the weather. She appeared to be losing hope of catching the bus and felt uncertain about what to do next. During this time, a car approached her. The driver slowed down and they talked. Then Mia got in the car. It is likely that the driver did not arouse any suspicion from her. He had gained her trust. The police suspect that he could be someone she knew from a party or could be an unlicensed taxi driver. Officers thoroughly examined all surveillance footage but were unable to determine the license plate number or identify the driver's face due to the poor quality of the footage. It is therefore unclear which vehicle the girl entered. However, it was clear that the driver was the last known person to see Mia alive, making it important to locate and interview him. On February 8th, officers decided to reach out to the public for assistance once again. They hoped that someone who recognized the driver would contact the police. Officers also spoke to Mia's friends again to clarify the timeline of events. Her friends provided a detailed account of that night. After everyone returned home in the morning, a brief conversation in the parking lot at around 6:20 a.m. A friend who accompanied Mia to the bus stop gave a detailed description of her route. This information proved useful. The police were able to discover several additional video cameras that may have captured footage of Mia and the car that stopped to pick her up. This investigation led to important discoveries. It was discovered that the car had an unusual license plate. Additionally, the quality of the footage was high enough that all the markings on the license plate could be clearly seen. This helped them gather information relevant to the case. On February 9, 2022, police tracked down the owner of a 2015 Volkswagen Golf who lived a few streets away from a local club. When they arrived at the address, they discovered that it was the car that had been caught on surveillance cameras. Police investigated and linked the car to two men, childhood friends with previous convictions for minor crimes, including a previous incident where they pretended to be police officers at a football match. Although both men denied knowing anything about Mia's disappearance, the fact that police were given 24-hour access to the car under Danish law suggested that they were involved in the case. The two men were then brought in for a preliminary hearing, which had to take place within 24 hours of their arrest. During the trial, the prosecutor presented his case and the evidence he had gathered. The judge then reviewed this evidence to decide if the detainees should remain in custody or be released. This process ensures that the rights of the accused are protected while also ensuring public safety. If someone is deemed potentially dangerous, it becomes critical to act swiftly. By February 10, 2022, it had already been 4 days since the Mia went missing. No one had provided any information about her location, and there were no ransom demands. With every minute that passed, the chances of finding her alive were slim. A preliminary hearing for the men took place in the county courthouse, but it was closed to the public. During this hearing, it was decided that one of the men would be released. This decision does not mean that he is no longer a suspect in the case. Thomas Thompson, a 30-year-old electrician, then agreed to stay. He agreed to be held for 4 weeks while police thoroughly investigated his background and spoke to some of his acquaintances. Thomas was born on June 18, 1985, and grew up in southeastern Denmark. Later, he moved to a small town in Denmark with a population of about 500 people. Initially, he lived in an apartment before moving to his grandparents' farm. He built a career in the military, advancing to the rank of sergeant. After leaving the military, he trained as an electrician. Thomas was known to be a smart, polite, calm, and pleasant individual. The main reason for Thomas's arrest was that he was the owner of the black Volkswagen. In addition, Thomas failed to provide an alibi. The police began checking the GPS system. When they impounded Thomas's car, they discovered that he had attempted to turn off the GPS about 4 hours before meeting Mia at the bus stop. A specialized digital forensics team, using surveillance camera footage, was able to accurately trace the route of Thomas's car. It all started at Thomas's residence, where he drove around the city several times, picked up a girl, and then traveled through nearby towns with brief stops. Thomas spent several hours at Lysistrata and returned 2 days later. This part of the route seemed particularly suspicious. Police decided to use specially trained dogs to examine the area. The dogs found a hair elastic, pieces of clothing, underwear, and other items scattered nearby. These items were aligned in a straight line, suggesting that the owner might have been running through the forest, fallen, or been attacked, gradually losing her belongings. The dogs led the police deeper into the forest near a local village, where they found areas of disturbed earth. When they dug these spots up, they uncovered human remains that were cut into several pieces. Police discovered 231 pieces of bodies, many of which were scattered around the burial site. The body is likely Mia's, as some of the clothing matches what she was wearing that night. All of the collected evidence was sent to a lab for analysis. Forensic experts quickly confirmed that the remains were Mia's. The medical examiner determined that Mia had died from strangulation, and that an electric saw had been used to dismember her body. Most of the body parts were severely damaged, indicating that they had been stored in a strong alkaline solution for an extended period of time. On the night Mia went missing, Thomas did turn off the GPS in his car at 2:14 a.m. However, due to a technical malfunction, the location continued to be recorded every 15 seconds. When questioned about why he attempted to disable the tracking system, Thomas claimed it was because a police officer had a personal vendetta against him and was following him. Thomas only reactivated the GPS at 9:23 a.m., likely after the Mia had already been killed. The Thomas then took her body to his house, where he began dismembering it. Thomas spoke up and confessed to giving Mia a ride in his car. He explained that he was passing a bus stop and saw Mia, who was not dressed appropriately for the cold weather. Thomas offered to drive her home out of kindness. He said that she had been flirting in the car and seemed comfortable, which prompted him to offer her a ride, which she agreed to. They drove through populated areas before entering a wooded area. Thomas claimed that they decided to have consensual sex there, but at some point Mia had a seizure. He said that she accidentally fell and injured her neck, which led to her death. Thomas's story then began to change with each conversation he had with the police. He would suddenly mention that Mia had gotten out of the car and tried to escape but tripped and fell, resulting in her death. When Mia showed no signs of life, Thomas panicked and felt confused about what to do. However, he did not call emergency services for fear of being charged with murder. Having been in legal trouble before, he was worried that the situation would only get worse. Instead, Thomas decided to take the body to his home in an attempt to conceal it. Initially, he tried to dissolve the body in a chemical solution, but after almost a day, it was clear that it didn't work as he had hoped. Next, he chopped up the remaining pieces, burying most of them while scattering some smaller fragments around the burial area. He attempted to burn his clothes from the day of the murder, the car mat, and the Mia's bag, which might have had bloodstains. In the ashes, police found clothing scraps and a tool that could have been used in a crime. Thomas claimed that his actions were driven by fear and desperation. However, the police had a different perspective, believing that the elaborate methods he used to dispose of the body revealed a level of cruelty that only a disturbed person could exhibit. The police believed that Thomas initially intended to harm the Mia by offering her a ride home. His actions suggested a deliberate plan, especially when he tried to disable the GPS tracking. Thomas's persistence worked against him. It took him 2 attempts to lure the Mia into his car. He waited for an hour and a half, looking for the right moment when the Mia, feeling cold and desperate, would agree to get in. Once Mia entered the vehicle, he threatened her, brandished a weapon, and assaulted her. Afterward, he decided to eliminate her to prevent her from reporting him to the police, resorting to a horrific method to do so. The medical examiner concluded that strangulation was the most likely cause of death. Many of the body parts were never found, possibly because they were hidden. This suggests that there was no voluntary consent to any intimate relationship. The evidence of the assault was clear, suggesting that the murder was the result of Mia's desperate resistance. Although there were indirect signs of rape, it could not be confirmed due to the condition of the body. Thomas remained silent and refused to provide any further details. The prosecutor's office reported that Thomas hunted throughout the night and selected a victim, waiting for the right moment to trap her. Police discovered that Thomas made 3 stops in a wooded area, suggesting he chased her by car, or that she attempted to flee multiple times. But he was able to catch her and pull her back. During a search of Thomas's car, Mia's DNA was found inside. When police searched Thomas's home, Mia's blood was found, confirming his crime. Police analyzed Thomas's behavior. It seemed that while he was trying to dispose of the body, he maintained his normal routine, except for taking a day off from work. On that day, Thomas attacked Mia but also socialized freely with friends, ordering pizza and delivering food, including many sweets. It seemed that Thomas had no remorse. Mia's relatives condemned Thomas's claim that Mia had consensually consented to sex with a stranger, calling it a blatant lie and disrespectful to her. The investigation found that in 2019, He was caught stalking a student, and that similar incidents had occurred in 2015 and 2017 when he peeped into the windows of two other girls and behaved inappropriately. One victim said that one night, she heard a knock on her window. When she looked out, she saw a strange man with his pants down, staring blankly at her, oblivious to the pouring rain. Despite being discovered, he appeared satisfied and quickly fled the scene after she alerted her parents. A sketch of him was later created. In 2010, a disturbing incident occurred when three women were awakened in their apartment by a noise and found a man inside. He attacked one of them and raped her before fleeing the scene. The police were called, but the attacker was never arrested. There was insufficient evidence and he was not held accountable for his actions. However, the victims were able to come forward as witnesses to help build a case against the criminal. Additionally, Thomas's ex-girlfriend reported on his behavior during their relationship. She said he was arrogant and manipulative, demanding complete compliance and losing his temper even at minor acts of disobedience. She also reported an alarming incident where, after breaking up with Thomas, she discovered that the brake hose on her car had been cut. Thankfully, this did not result in an accident. But she was unable to prove that Thomas was responsible, although she was convinced that he had done it. A third witness discovered a file on Thomas's computer containing a long list of wives along with disturbing content. Several witnesses described Thomas regularly watching videos depicting extreme violence, including murder and sexual assault. Psychiatrists evaluated Thomas and described him as having narcissistic personality traits, identifying Thomas as a sociopath lacking empathy for others. Despite this assessment, he was deemed sane. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution against Thomas, he pleaded not guilty to raping and murdering Mia and showed no remorse. However, Thomas accepted responsibility for improperly disposing of her body and dismembering her. He denied any involvement in the murder, claiming that she had died in an accident, but this explanation was unconvincing. Even if Mia had been seriously injured in the accident, he could have called for help, which would have proven his innocence. Instead, Thomas chose to dismember her body without attempting first aid, despite he knowing the necessary techniques. In June 2023, 38-year-old Thomas Thompson was convicted of murdering Mia Skadhosh-Stephen. He was also convicted of aggravated indecency with a body. The prosecutor asked for a life sentence, while Thomas's attorney argued for a reduced sentence. Ultimately, Thomas was sentenced to life in prison because he was deemed a threat to society. He will be eligible for parole after serving 10 years. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Vashti Sekat. At approximately 4 a.m. on April 30th, 2011, Brett Sekat called 911 for assistance. He informed the police that his wife had taken end your own life and that she had also set fire to their house. Their two young sons, aged 2 and 4, were asleep in their bedroom at the time of the incident. Brett was able to save them but wanted to go back into the burning house to rescue his wife. The police advised him to stay where he was and not to go back inside because of the fire, and instructed him to keep an eye on the children. The police were then dispatched to their location. When firefighters arrived at the home and extinguished the fire, they discovered a woman dead. Her body was lying on the left side of the bed, with her arms and legs bent. In a state of anguish, Brett described what had happened in more detail. He explained that his wife, 34-year-old Vashti, had called him to help while he was sleeping on the couch on the first floor. He told her to take their children from the second-floor nursery and bring them down. She followed his instructions in a semi-conscious state. He believed his wife was unwell and that their children in the next room were disturbing her. Suddenly, he heard a loud slamming of the bedroom door, followed by flames coming from upstairs. Worried by the strange noises, he went upstairs to check on her and found his wife unconscious on the bed, bleeding. He held her tightly, but she was unresponsive. When he tried to lift her up to get her out, the flames around them made it impossible. Brett decided to prioritize saving the children. He went downstairs, got his sons out of the house, and put them in a car for safety before calling 911. He suspected his wife had set fire to the bed and shot herself while he was on the phone. Ignoring police warnings, he went back into the house to save her. Covering his face with a wet towel, he carefully moved into the smoky darkness, but the flames forced him to retreat. He believed his wife suffered from depression and dark thoughts, which may have led her to set herself on fire. He felt guilty for not being able to help her, but he was unclear about her motives for these tragic events. Despite her troubling thoughts, she was primarily concerned about her children's safety. This concern led her to ask her husband to take them away before she took her own life. However, the reason for starting a fire afterward remains unclear, and no one seems to have an answer. When police examined the scene, they discovered several intriguing details. They found a canister of gasoline next to the bed, suggesting that the fire was deliberately set. The position of the gun raised several questions. It was found under Vashti's body with the barrel pointing downward, which made it unlikely that she could have shot herself in that way. Police searched through her purse and discovered a note listing various expenses. The first item on the list was funeral, with an amount of $15,000 next to it. Other expenses included a mortgage, a car, and education, all categorized as life insurance. This suggests that the Vashti may have planned for her death and specified which expenses her life insurance would cover. On the passenger seat of Vashti's car, her notebook was located. Inside, there was a handwritten note filled with distressing messages. "She can't do this. She can't fight this. Take care of our boys. Be nice to Brendan. Talk to Bronson and support them both, letting them know that mommy loves them. Every night I take care of Bronson is so wonderful. Mommy is so proud of you. Be a good big brother, Brendan. Stay strong and never lose that smile. I love you both and will watch over you from heaven." Neighbors shared some details about the situation. One neighbor, who couldn't sleep that night and was watching TV, reported hearing gunshots around 3:15 a.m. She noted that Brett didn't call 911 until 3:57 a.m., which raised questions about why he waited 42 minutes to seek help. Vashti's body was sent for an autopsy. A forensic pathologist determined that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and confirmed that her death was not due to fire or smoke, as these occurred later. She had additional gunshot wounds to her chest and thighs. A toxicology report found no signs of alcohol or illegal substances in her system. A few days after Vashti's death, a funeral was held in front of the house where the fire had started. Family, friends, and local residents attended the ceremony. While Vashti's loved ones reflected on her life, her siblings, Kathleen and Rich, harbored doubts about what had really happened. They suspected Brett, and Kathleen quickly dismissed Brett's explanation as improbable. Kathleen, Rich, and Vashti lived in different states but remained close, frequently calling and visiting each other. Their loved ones were aware of the issues and conflicts in Vashti's marriage. Brett's comments after his wife's death were shocking. A large portrait of Vashti hung over the fireplace in their home. When her sister approached the photo to offer her condolences, Brett looked at Kathleen with irritation and expressed that he didn't want to discuss his wife. This response surprised the family members. Upon hearing about Vashti's death, her brother and sister contacted the county sheriff, insisting that she could not have taken her own life. They urged the police to treat the case as a potential murder and conduct a thorough investigation. The Rich and Kathleen closely observed the Brett's actions and shared valuable information with the police. By this point, the police, who sensed something was seriously wrong with the case, had begun to look more deeply into the lives of the Brett and Vashti. They appeared to be a happy couple who had been together for many years. They started dating in school, where Vashti was known as the school beauty and Brett was a promising athlete excelling in wrestling. They were very much in love and got married after a few years of dating. The couple held their wedding in Belize in 2004 and later settled in Brett's hometown of Kingman, Kansas, a small, friendly town with a population of just 3,000. There, they bought a house and started a family, welcoming 2 sons. At the time of the tragedy, their eldest son, Brendan, was 4 years old, and their youngest, Bronson, was 2. Friends and neighbors viewed the family as exemplary, unaware of the issues they faced behind the closed doors of the family. Brett often praised his wife to friends, yet he had concerns about her excessive dedication to her job in the HR department of an advertising agency. She frequently worked late, which bothered him. He struggled to understand why she felt the need to work so much, especially since he earned a decent income as a police academy instructor and could support the family comfortably. In contrast, Vashti valued her independence and wanted to help with the family finances. She was successful in her career and truly enjoyed her work. Brett believed that Vashti's emotional struggles were heavily influenced by her work-related fatigue. She was experiencing burnout and depression, feeling that life had lost its meaning. It was revealed that her boss had been concerned about her health prior to the tragedy and discovered she had hormonal imbalances. Vashti was prescribed hormonal supplements intended to help her lose weight naturally. But these medications have side effects, including fatigue, irritability, and anxiety, which may have contributed to her depression. Vashti's relatives said she suffered from depression. She had recently started seeing a psychologist, and after November 2010, she and her husband began attending family counseling to address the problems in their troubled marriage. Vashti had changed a lot. Previously a cheerful and sociable leader, she had become withdrawn and sad. It is possible that her emotional state contributed to her decision to end her life. However, new developments soon came to light. As her marriage struggled, she considered divorcing Brett. Family counseling sessions were ineffective and their list of grievances only grew longer. Frequent arguments took place, pushing their relationship to the brink of collapse. Vashti's relatives said that she often spent time alone and sometimes went out with friends just to avoid being at home and seeing Brett. Despite this, she and Brett continued to attend family counseling, and she also had separate sessions with the same therapist. However, Vashti's relatives could not accept that she would choose to die. They believed that she loved life, her children, and her family too much to take such a drastic step. Although there were challenges in the marriage and feelings of depression, they were not overwhelming. Additionally, they found it hard to believe that she could have started a fire in the house, putting her young children's lives at risk and leaving them without shelter. This idea seemed illogical to them. How could a loving and caring mother do something like that to her sons? Relatives shared that she would wake up every morning at 4 o'clock to prepare nutritious breakfasts for her children. She avoided store-bought baby food, choosing instead to make her own purees from fresh vegetables and cook wholesome porridge for them. When she learned that a boy in kindergarten had been diagnosed with cancer, she took it upon herself to support his family by raising funds for his treatment. She baked pancakes, sold them, and donated the proceeds to the boy's family. Everyone around her was convinced that such a mother would never abandon her children. Police considered both accounts of the incident. They considered the possibility that Brett might have been involved in the case. Police reviewed Brett's call. When they called 911, they found that Brett's voice sounded cold, emotionless, and distant, which gave the police the impression that he didn't care. According to the investigation, the police discovered that Brett isolated Vashti and the children from relatives and friends, limited communication, and considered his wife and children as his property. Vashti could only talk to family and friends when he was at work. Otherwise, he would get angry if anyone called her in his presence. The Brett exerted complete control over his family. The Kathleen described Brett as a narcissist and an abuser. He was strict not only with his wife but also with his sons. The Brett believed that even at a young age, boys needed to be treated harshly to become strong men. He never allowed his children to show weakness and often resorted to physical punishment. Brett trained them from an early age and taught them to fight. His harsh parenting methods caused tension within the family, contributing to the breakdown of the marriage. Finally, Vashti felt it was time to leave. A few days before the tragedy, Vashti met with a lawyer and filed for divorce. She wanted custody of the children but was open to them spending weekends with their father under her supervision. Although she was sad about the divorce, she would be free from Brett control for a long time. He had been controlling her since the beginning of their relationship. Vashti had big plans for her future, including a trip to Hawaii with her sister, tickets to a concert of her favorite band, and other travel plans. Without Brett by her side, she took charge of her life, focusing on healthy eating, exercise, and weight loss. She is in great shape and happy with the positive changes she has made. She recently went shopping with Kathleen and bought a lot of beautiful new clothes, which were still in the bags and with the tags still on at the time of the fire. She hasn't even had a chance to wear them. Those who knew Vashti sensed that something was off. It seemed impossible for her to abandon all her plans so suddenly. Despite feeling depressed, she remained excited and determined to move forward. However, she was unaware that her plans would never come to fruition. Just days before her tragic death, she served Brett with divorce papers, which infuriated him. Shortly after, she passed away. Could this have been mere coincidence? If she was indeed planning a divorce and preparing for a new chapter in her life while intending to raise her children alone, why would she choose to leave this world and abandon her beloved sons? This raised serious concerns for the police. The Kathleen informed police that Brett had consistently threatened his wife with violence and a lengthy divorce process. He had even warned her that he would take their children away if she decided to leave him. Out of fear, Vashti had put up with his behavior for a long time, but she could no longer tolerate living with her abusive husband and wanted to end their marriage as soon as possible. When Brett learned of the impending divorce, he was devastated and canceled a planned vacation with friends. He believed that threatening Vashti with taking away their children was the best way to win her back. He made it clear to her that he would do everything in his power to ensure she never saw her sons again, even if it meant moving them out of the country. This left Vashti very scared. That night, after receiving threats from Brett, she went to visit a friend. She then took the children away so that Brett would have time to think about where he was going. She believed that when she and the children returned, Brett would decide to leave and would not bother her with the children anymore. However, Brett had no intention of leaving. Instead, he was planning something. A few days later, Brett convinced Vashti to talk to him. He tearfully confessed to her that he wanted her to come back and asked for a chance to see the children he missed so much. When she asked why he hadn't moved yet, he replied that he had nowhere to go and asked to stay until he found a new place to live. Vashti was moved by Brett's words. Therefore, she returned home with Brett in the morning, but died that night. Police interviewed a therapist to learn more about the couple's relationship. The therapist revealed that Vashti had recently confided in her about threats from her husband, Brett. Just days before the tragedy, Brett had told Vashti about a dream he had in which he killed her, and he had promised that as a police officer, he could make it look like an accident or that she had left voluntarily. The therapist described Brett as a narcissist with latent psychopathic traits. In that situation, the therapist feared that Brett might harm his wife and could not accept that Vashti would choose to end her own life. The therapist thought Vashti was too religious to do such a thing and believed that she would never abandon her children to their abusive father. Brett was called in for questioning and was asked directly if he had anything to do with his wife's death. He firmly denied any involvement and expressed that Vashti's death had shocked him deeply. He explained that he was struggling to cope, as he was now alone with their children and unsure how to live without his beloved wife. Brett acknowledged that their relationship had faced difficulties. The night before the tragedy, they had discussed their future plans and the possibility of dividing their assets in case of a divorce. He noted that Vashti had been very depressed, and he suggested that their conversation may have caused her to be so distressed that she chose to end her life. He felt guilty, believing that he may have hurt her, which may have contributed to her tragic decision. When asked about threats to Vashti's life, Brett claimed it was just a joke. He admitted that he tried to intimidate her to avoid a divorce, but insisted he would never harm her. When questioned about what might motivate Vashti to set their house on fire, he said she disliked it because they couldn't afford necessary repairs. Throughout the interrogation, Brett acted disrespectfully and aggressively, expressing anger over being questioned about his wife's death. He stated that it was her choice to end her life and that he was in no way responsible for it. Brett's account of the fire and his actions during the time do not match. He said he rushed into the burning room and hugged his bleeding wife in an attempt to save her. However, there was no blood on his clothes or body, and he showed no signs of burns, despite being in the middle of the fire. Shirtless, barefoot, and wearing only pants. It is unlikely that he would not have suffered blisters or singed hair, especially since he walked barefoot through the flames. This suggests that he never actually entered the burning room and was not being truthful about his account. Police suspected Brett of being involved in the crime, but they needed more evidence to arrest him and file charges, so they continued their investigation. Brett's pants, which he was wearing at the time of the fire, were taken for analysis. Tests showed traces of gasoline on the pants, indicating that he likely started the fire. A forensic expert confirmed that Vashti died when the house burned down, contradicting Brett's claim that she started the fire. Firefighters found multiple fires on the second floor of the home, indicating that someone had deliberately set the fire to destroy evidence of the crime. Police discovered that Brett had spent 40 minutes before calling 911, during which time he had taken steps to destroy any evidence. Investigations of his home computer and phone revealed numerous internet searches for how to destroy evidence before the incident. Forensic examinations from Podcherkesk revealed that the notes Vashti left behind were forgeries. The letters were slanted in the opposite direction and the handwriting did not match Vashti's. It is likely that her husband tried to imitate her handwriting but did not do a good job, possibly in a hurry. The test showed that the shot was fired from a point where Vashti could not have shot herself. There were no gunpowder burns on her body. Brett was not initially suspected of murder, so police did not test his hands for gunpowder residue. All the evidence pointed to Brett, and on May 14, 2011, he was arrested. He faces charges of murder, arson, and endangering the lives of children. The trial began only 2 years later. The prosecution presented clear evidence of Brett's guilt. The position of the gun did not match the circumstances. If Vashti had shot herself while lying down, the gun would have been on the floor. If she had shot herself while sitting, the gun should have been to her right side. Instead, it was found under her body with the muzzle pointing down, which was impossible. The bullet's trajectory was also questionable. Achieving that trajectory would require her to bend her arm almost completely and hold it away from her body. The lack of soot and smoke in Vashti's respiratory system and blood indicates that she was dead when a fire started, suggesting that someone else started the fire. During the trial, experts in handwriting, ballistics, and forensic science provided their testimony. There were no witnesses from the defense present in court. Brett denied all allegations, and his lawyer attempted to dispute the evidence linking him to the crime. The prosecution argued that Vashti's bedroom was where the crime took place. Brett shot her and then set fire to parts of the house. He got the children out to safety and called 911 from the second floor. The prosecution believed that the motive behind the crime was his refusal to get a divorce and share custody of the children. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Brett Seacat, 37, was convicted on all counts, including first-degree murder, and Brett was sentenced to life in prison, plus 6 years and 3 months, for arson and endangering the lives of children. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Sarah Starr. On November 27, 2017, at approximately 9 a.m., the Sherry County Sheriff's Department in Alabama, United States, received a call from a witness who believed her friend had taken her own life. Police were dispatched to a home owned by a local church. The home had previously been the pastor's residence, but had recently been rented out exclusively to church members. The tenant at the time of the incident was Sarah Starr, a recently divorced mother of 3. At 38, she had been married for 16 years, but her relationship had hit a rough patch, leading her to make the difficult decision to divorce. Sarah was at a turning point in her life, facing the challenges of being a single parent without her husband's support. She had to take on all parental responsibilities, including providing for the needs of the children since her husband did not help at first. However, without her husband constantly pressuring her, her situation seemed to improve. Life became easier for her. Sarah Starr was born in 1979 in the small town of LBI, Kansas, USA. She is a doting mother. She easily manages and cares for her children. She is a teacher at a local elementary school where she teaches literature. Sarah loves her job. People describe her as knowledgeable and calm, with the ability to engage and inspire students. Sarah's marriage to Jason began in February 2001 when she was 22 years old and had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in education. Jason, who was 28, had recently returned from military service. He had previously been married and had a son, but after facing disagreements with his first wife, they divorced. He was immediately drawn to Sarah's kindness and beauty. Initially, their marriage seemed stable and happy, and Sarah often shared how well things were going. However, there were growing concerns among friends and family about Jason's behavior. Many noticed that he would frequently insult and humiliate her in public. After 5 years of marriage, the couple had twins, then another set of twins, which was quite a rare event. She was overjoyed to become a mother of 4, but Jason was unhappy. The couple lived in a small town of Colby, Kansas, where they grew up, but they decided to move to Alabama. They rented a house in their new home and Jason found a job. In addition to his main job, he started a business. Meanwhile, Sarah became a stay-at-home mother, taking care of 4 young children and managing household chores. It was a lot of work, but she did it well. However, Jason's income was not enough, so Sarah took on a part-time job at a school. This increased her workload while her husband did not provide much support. Sarah found a strong community of believers and became an active member of her local Baptist church. Her easygoing and outgoing personality helped her settle into her new environment. In 2016, she became a 4th-grade teacher at a nearby elementary school. People described her as a very positive and friendly woman. However, behind her cheerful exterior, she faced difficulties, especially after she gave birth to her second set of twins. Jason felt overwhelmed. He often lost his temper with Sarah because of the noise from the children, lack of sleep, and the mess they made. Sarah admitted that she was exhausted by this marriage. She decided to divorce and moved into a house provided by the church for a small fee and began the divorce process. Because of Jason's business, along with the division of assets and child custody, the divorce process could drag on for years. Fortunately, she had the support of her church, which helped her through the difficult times. Although Sarah was a devoted mother and managed her responsibilities well, the ongoing hardships took a toll on her mental health. She became increasingly anxious, frequently arguing with her husband, with Jason saying that Sarah focused on spending his money on unnecessary items and was addicted to shopping. This behavior worsened after their divorce, leading to significant financial difficulties. These made it difficult for her to sleep and she suffered from mild depression. When Sarah decided to move out of the house she shared with Jason, she asked her friends, Dana and Lawrence, a married couple, for help. They later remembered how anxious Sarah seemed during the move. She hurriedly tried to load her belongings into the car but kept forgetting items, forcing her to run back and forth from the house to the street multiple times. This frantic behavior raised suspicions about her mental state. Sarah was particularly worried that Jason might return while she was moving, as she didn't want him to find out and interfere. When Sarah and her friends arrived at her new home, Jason appeared. Lawrence then asked Jason not to enter, and Jason complied. Jason lingered near the house for a while before leaving. Lawrence recalled that when Jason appeared, Sarah was very scared. She was shaking and crying, and she had been suffering from stress and anxiety for a long time. She truly believed that Jason had come to harm her, especially since he had previously threatened her with violence if she asked for help. 2 years later, the divorce was finalized. They decided to share custody of their children. At that time, their twins were 12 and 7 years old. Jason was also ordered to pay monthly child support to all 4 children and his wife, who was still struggling financially. The divorce had a significant impact on Jason's finances. He was ordered to pay $3,000. At the time, Jason was earning over $6,000 a month, meaning the court ordered him to pay half of his income to Sarah. However, she did not receive any of his assets, so she continued to live in the church. Jason also moved out, but to a house near his ex-wife's house, where he now lives with his mother. On November 27, 2017, Sarah was expected to return to work after Thanksgiving, but she did not show up for class that morning, which was very unusual for her. Colleagues were unable to contact her as she did not respond to messages on various platforms, raising concern about her behavior. Some teachers speculated that something serious might have occurred. Consequently, a colleague was sent to check on her. Tragically, at around 8:30 a.m., they discovered Sarah outside her home with multiple gunshot wounds. Police determined that Sarah was likely the victim of a violent attack. They found that she had left her home around 6:30 a.m. to go to work but was shot in the chest shortly after. An unknown assailant had fired a shotgun at close range, also wounding her in the head. Neighbors later informed the police that they had heard gunfire that morning. However, since it was a rural area where hunting was common, they did not think much. In these regions, residents often use firearms for hunting or to deter wild animals. Forensic experts found no fingerprints or tire marks at the crime scene. However, it was soon discovered that Sarah had just gone through a complicated divorce from her husband, which aroused the police's suspicions. Initial witnesses, Dana and Lawrence, told police that Sarah's divorce followed a difficult marriage. During the final months of the divorce proceedings, Sarah expressed fear of her husband, believing that he might try to harm her. Jason lived only a few minutes' walk from her rented home. With this information, the police began to focus on the prime suspect, Jason. He was brought in for questioning, but he denied any involvement in Sarah's murder. He was released a few hours later when his alibi was confirmed. He had breakfast at a restaurant with his children, as evidenced by surveillance camera footage and witness testimony. Although Jason was released, suspicions surrounding him remained, as Jason had a strong motive to harm Sarah. Furthermore, Sarah's friends and family confirmed that she was terrified of Jason. A press conference was held to update the public on the investigation, during which it was announced that the state governor had offered a $5,000 reward for any information leading to Sarah's killer. A local resident later added another $500 to the reward fund. Unfortunately, these efforts were fruitless. Police asked for the public's help in providing vital information to help move the case forward, but no leads came up and the case stalled for years. The local sheriff's department cooperated with the state police. However, the case remained stalled until December 2021. Police believe Jason was involved in the crime, possibly hiring a killer. He had a motive, as he had to pay more than half of his income to his ex-wife and children. It is believed that financial disputes led to the murder, and although he tried to gain full custody of the children, he was unsuccessful in court. While searching Jason's computer, police discovered a manuscript for a book he planned to publish. The manuscript contained chapters discussing his relationship with Sarah. Jason expressed a strong desire to avoid paying her the court-ordered amount and considered ways to avoid paying her. His writings included many derogatory comments about Sarah and women in general, which added to the police's suspicions of him. Additionally, police reviewed Jason's financial transactions and discovered that between September 7th and November 15th, the year Sarah was murdered, he made 7 transactions totaling $2,600. These transactions were made between Jason and a person named Lily. The investigation revealed that Lily was friends with Jason's brother, Darren, and that they had no further financial interactions. Through discussions with Lily, police learned that Jason had gifted his brother Darren a 2016 motorcycle, which was a costly item. The reason behind such an expensive gift was unclear, especially since Jason did not seem to have the financial means to afford it. He defended his actions by saying that he had been in an accident, but chose not to report it to the police. Instead, Jason gave his damaged bike to Darren to repair. Darren estimated the cost of the repairs at $5,000. Jason decided to send the money through Darren's friend, Lily. The total amount transferred was $2,600, which Jason claimed was for the motorcycle repairs. However, police suspect that this may actually have been a way to repay a debt to Darren, who may have been involved in the attack and death of Sarah. It is believed that Lily was used to conceal payments for the crime and help conceal their involvement. His brother, Darren, is described as a difficult person who had a difficult life in Texas. Darren has a criminal record that includes a 2013 speeding arrest in which illegal drugs were found. Although he received a short sentence for drug possession, this history has raised suspicions about his possible involvement in more serious crimes. Police investigated the brothers' communications and data, including seizing their cell phones. They identified Darren as the new prime suspect in Sarah's case. He traveled to Alabama just before Thanksgiving 2017. Darren arrived in the area on November 18th and stayed for 10 days, often staying near Sarah's home. Darren's location was tracked, showing he was near the church and turned off his mobile phone around midnight, just before Sarah's murder. This behavior suggested he was watching the Sarah and trying to hide his location from the police. His phone was back on around 10 a.m. the next day, back in Texas. Later that day, he sent Jason a coded message about a successful deer hunt, indicating they were using coded language to communicate. One of Sarah's neighbors reported seeing a motorcycle that looked like Jason's near her house several times before the murder. Shortly after the crime, the same motorcycle was spotted leaving the area, which added to the evidence. Based on this information, police determined that Jason had hired Darren to kill his ex-wife, leading to serious charges against both men. In December 2021, Jason requested a lawyer and denied any involvement in the crime, confidently asserting that the police would have no evidence against him. However, he later confessed to killing Sarah, repeatedly stating that he was guilty. Despite his confession, he was released on bail pending a hearing, requiring him to wear an ankle monitor. His trial is set for June 27, 2022. Darren's situation was quite complex. He went into hiding, prompting a nationwide FBI manhunt. His photo was widely distributed, and initially, a $10,000 reward was offered for information leading to his capture, which later increased to $22,500. On February 5, 2022, Darren turned himself in Texas. He chose not to plead guilty and waived his right to wait for the hearing while under house arrest, instead opting to stay in prison until the trial started. Throughout this period, Jason and Darren frequently spoke on the phone, but their conversations were monitored, and they did not discuss anything that could be used against them. The preparation of the case was delayed because there was a lot of circumstantial evidence but not enough direct evidence. After the police completed their investigation, on September 11, 2023, the trial of Jason Starr and Darren Starr finally began. The prosecution aimed to determine Jason's financial motive, emphasizing that he did not want to pay more than half of his income to Sarah. They presented substantial circumstantial evidence, including Jason's contact with Darren's brother in Texas, his use of his motorcycle to travel to Alabama, and the transfer of money. Lily claimed that she was not involved in any wrongdoing. According to her statement, she was unaware of what the Jason and Darren were doing and was surprised to learn she could be seen as being an accomplice to the crime. Eventually, it was decided not to pursue any charges against Lily. The attorney pointed out that there was a lack of strong evidence. There was no murder weapon found and there were no witnesses to the attack in person or recorded on surveillance cameras. Jason's computer notes appear to be an expression of his emotions and frustration after losing custody of his children and facing significant financial burdens. These notes reflected his emotional state and not any intent to kill. Therefore, none of this could be considered direct evidence of a desire to kill. During the 10 days Darren was in Alabama, the brothers did not speak to each other. They may have used disposable phones purchased online to communicate. The lack of any physical evidence at the scene of the massacre, such as shoe prints, fingerprints, DNA, or even motorcycle tire tracks. In addition, the lawyer also presented a video showing Jason having breakfast with his children in a restaurant 10 kilometers from Sarah's house, which happened at the same time the attackers shot Sarah. Jason fully cooperated with the investigation from the beginning by allowing police to search his cell phone and computer. His attorney highlighted this point, trying to convince the jury that a true criminal would never allow such a search, especially if they knew about the evidence against them. However, this argument was not convincing, especially given Jason's behavior and his confession after his arrest. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury then spent 6 hours deliberating their verdict. Ultimately, the jury decided that Jason Starr and Darren Starr were guilty of murder and conspiracy to murder. On January 4, 2024, both were sentenced to life in prison without parole and ordered to pay a $25,000 fine. Darren's attorney later announced plans to appeal the verdict, while Jason's defense attorney remained silent on the matter due to Jason's confession to the murder. The children were placed in the care of Sarah's parents. In court, the older twin expressed a desire to cut ties with their father, stating that they no longer wanted to see him,